Welcome to the September 30th, 2025 meeting of the Planning Board. First, we'll take roll call to introduce board members and staff. Maureen White. Maureen Collins White. I'm so sorry. You're muted.
You're still muted, Maureen. There
I
you go.
know.
I'm
Here.
one to talk.
I'm doing it so I don't cough in everybody's ear.
There you go.
Understood. Well, we'll segue right into Phil Giordano.
Phil Giordano is here, and welcome, Tim.
Yes.
Yeah.
Happy to have you with us.
I hope I say your name correctly. Tim Haladina?
Haladina, but
Haladina.
Tim Haladina here. Thank you.
Tim Haladina. All right, I will get that right next time because I will be saying it a lot.
Yeah, no worries. Again, it's been butchered so many times. I'm immune to it.
You're immune to it. Well, welcome, Tim.
Sounds good.
Once I finish the opening remarks, I'm going to introduce Tim a little bit better. I'm Ellen Rawlings. I'm also here. Mike Dudarian should be along shortly. We're also joined by Amanda Wolf, our housing and land use planner, Elijah Romulus, our town planner, Jess Cole, our recording secretary, Nora Loughnane, our director of community and economic development, and Evan Cardamino from Westwood Media Center. This meeting is recorded by Westwood Media Center and broadcast live on local cable television Comcast Channel 6 and Verizon Channel 42. Meetings are also live on the Westwood Media Center's YouTube channel. If you're interested in joining the meeting via Zoom, you can find the login directions in the Planning Board meeting notice that is posted to the calendar section of the town's webpage at https://www.townhall.westwood.ma.us/. We will begin the meeting with only the board members and staff unmuted and on video. As the chair recognizes individuals to speak, we will unmute them. Board members may choose to mute themselves when they are not speaking in order to minimize background noise. For applications, the chair will first invite the applicant to address the board and give a presentation summarizing what is being requested. Board members receive the application materials prior to the meeting and will have reviewed them. Board members may ask questions during and following the presentation. Staff and outside experts will provide comments to the board. If the issue includes a public hearing, the board will then proceed to the public comment portion of the public hearing and will restate the instructions. In this remote meeting format, residents and guests may participate in several ways. Attendees should raise their hand and wait to be unmuted and recognized to speak over the Zoom meeting application or from a telephone dial-up. We will be able to hear you but not see you. Additionally, comments may be submitted by email or regular mail prior to the meeting. When we come to that part of the meeting, I will remind everyone of the process. Following the public comment portion, the board will deliberate and make a decision or continue the hearing to a specific future date. All remote meetings require that votes be taken by roll call. When a motion and second has been made, the chair will ask if there's any further discussion before proceeding to a roll call vote and will then restate the results of the vote. Okay. Oh, and we have been joined by Mike Durdarian. Hi, Mike.
Hey everyone, thank you for accommodating me here.
No worries at all. So before we jump into the agenda, just to bring anyone who's dialed in who may not have been aware, we had resignation in August. Sean Weller moved. So we had a seat to fill, and we did have a joint meeting with the select board last night. And I again want to extend collectively all of our thanks to everyone who put themselves forward. It's sometimes a challenge to get people to be willing to serve. So I was really thrilled to see such a large pool of people who are interested in joining the planning board to fill that vacancy. So thank you again to everybody. The consensus of both boards was Tim. So Tim is with us tonight. He's a fully seated member of the planning board and will be in that role through the next election in spring of 2026, where at that time, Tim, you can choose to run, but there will be an election then. But we have Tim with us, and I'm very pleased to have you here. So welcome to the board, and thank you again for taking this on. Excuse me, I'm also.
Yeah, thank you, Ellen. Good to be here with everyone again.
Excellent. All right. With that, then I will ask my usual question. Elijah, any changes to the agenda?
No changes to the agenda.
All right. Then with that, our first agenda item is 790 Gay Street, consideration of proposed modification to an environmental impact and design review, EIDR, approval to permit the abandonment of a walking path at 790 Gay Street, the Pine Hill School. This was continued from July 29th, 2025. All right, do we have anyone here from the school building committee? I see Roberto. Okay, great. Oh,
Um,
and I see a hand raised too.
Do
John,
you want me to bring on the two committees that are providing comment now, or wait until we get to the comment period?
I think it might be helpful to have them come in now, because if board
Okay.
members have questions that might be pertinent to them, it's probably good to have them involved currently. Thank you. Thanks for asking.
Good evening, everyone. Happy to be here.
Welcome back.
Thanks.
All right. Do we have, is everyone who we wanted to promote, we're good?
Yes.
Okay, I see nods. All right, great. Then I will happily turn the floor over to Roberto.
We are just here as a follow-up from previous hearings to request the removal of the pathway from the Scout House to the fire access lane.
Right. Okay. I didn't know if you had.
No, I don't have anything else.
Short and sweet, that's for
Yeah.
sure.
I always
We've-
wait a second because I never want to like jump in and cut an applicant off.
the last time we met, we had the discussion was that that as I understand it, the planning board was going to reach out to the Commission on Disabilities, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Which you did, and the Commission on Disabilities reviewed the situation and provided a letter, correct?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
And so I guess we'll just leave it up to you to, does anybody have any questions on anything, I'm happy to answer.
Perfect. Like I said, I've done that before where I've started and the applicant was just taking a moment. So I like to make sure before I
Sure.
jump in. So thank you. I appreciate the very concise presentation. Okay, then first I'll start with staff comments. Elijah, do you have anything from the staff in your realm and or anyone else?
Yes. So we, since the last meeting, the planning board had requested comments from both the school building committee and the Commission on Disability. The Commission on Disability had taken a recess over the summer. However, they were able to meet at their September 16th meeting and provided a letter that thank you, Amanda, for sharing that says that they reviewed it and they ultimately said, I think the second paragraph probably says it best. While the Commission on Disability would always be in favor of more accessible pathways in our community, the Commission does not believe it is the best use of available resources to create an ADA compliant pathway that leads to a walking trail system that is not ADA compliant or accessible. And that, I believe, directly answers the question that the planning board had asked at the last meeting, whether or not a pathway were to be ADA compliant, would that be worthwhile leading to a trail system that is not?
Thank you. The only other staff comment I actually had a question about, and it's from quite some time ago in our documents, but I don't see an update. The comments from Ped Bike, whatever advisory, I can't recall what the name changed, but the pedestrian bike and safety, had they had any further input aside from their previous comments about what they would like to happen?
So not specifically from the entire group. However, there were representatives that did attend the most recent Commission on Disability and have did make public comment at our last meeting for this item.
Okay, sorry. Thank you. And was there anything different from, I mean, their statement prior was that they felt that the walking path should be replaced. Are they still recommending that, or have they shifted perspective?
I don't have an official comment, but I believe the intent was that whatever the path is to just be a kind of a footpath that is not necessarily on the plan, but to be worn down over time.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure, because that comment was from May, and I just wanted to make sure that we had current feedback from that advisory committee as well. So thank you for that. Okay, any further staff comments?
There is also a representative from the school building committee who, if the board needs questions answered, can participate as well.
Perfect. Excellent, thank you. Well, then I think at this time it makes sense to open it up to board member questions and comments. Oh, I see someone's hand raised. Oh, Peter, I'll take public comment once the board has had a chance, but I will recognize you. I do see your hand up. We'll get to public comment after the board has a chance to weigh in. All right, any board members with questions or comments? Mike.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Roberto, good to see you again. Elijah, I appreciate your having reached out to the commission. I guess I'm still just puzzled because I know, Elijah, you sent the recording of our meeting back in June over to the commission. And I think you relayed some of the issues and concerns that we were kind of going back and forth on. And in my view, I thought the issue was clearly stated that we wanted comment from the commission on how the commission would feel if we went out and sought an exemption or a variance to kind of the general, ADA law that says, anytime you basically touch the land, it needs to be ADA compliant. When I read the commission's letter here, I see the commission clearly stating that they think it would be a waste of resources to spend tens of thousands of dollars, $100,000 creating an ADA compliant path that leads to a set of trails that are, that are not accessible. And I completely agree with that position. What the letter doesn't say, and I feel like carefully avoids, is any statement as to whether they would object to, again, seeking an administrative exemption on, making a very simple gravel dust path that, wouldn't be compliant. Again, in very brief research, I see that there are these exemptions that are issued in these types of circumstances. I can't think it would cost that much money if we would get the exemption to put down the gravel dust and have the sign and have it look nice instead of trampled over. Right now there's, random colored flags sticking up, the grass is trampled over. I'm just trying to figure out why that isn't just the easiest way to do this. But I would want town council's view on this, whether I'm correct or not, whether there is an exemption process. I obviously don't want this to cost the town too much money, but like that was a question I really wanted to explore last time. Like, was there a reason why the community would object to us potentially exploring this or not? And again, when I read the letter, I see them saying, do not spend money on a compliant path. It's not worth it. What they don't say is, whether they would object to us seeking the exemption. So I just wanted to raise that and get the other board members' feedback on what they think.
I'm going to echo Micah without restating. That was along the same lines.
Thank you, Mike and Phil. Any other board member comments or questions? I'm not, Maureen, yes.
Yeah, was reading the letter that was actually from, I do believe it was the school board committee. And I guess my question is, it said, After public discussion and open meeting in spring of 2022, the school board committee made the decision to remove the proposed trail from the project. I guess my question there is, when that was done, was the planning board aware of that? And that was my question. Can somebody clarify that for me?
I think at the time we were in the process of putting the project out to bid, or had already received bids, and so a decision needed to be made. There wasn't a process for going back to the planning board because we were on a schedule for the start of construction. It's typically not something that we would do in terms of, if you think about the scope of the planning board and the stormwater and everything else that goes along with the larger permit. So no, it wasn't presented to the planning board. We were on a tight schedule to get the construction started.
No, thank you. But my question also was, so there was no notice from either the school board committee or you folks to the planning board. Should the planning board have been made aware of this change? This is what my question is.
So, if I may.
Sure.
So back in 2022, there was I'm assuming you all got the letter that we had sent out, Elijah,
Yeah.
I'm sure I sent it through. With everything that was going on in the beginning of 22, we had to make $22 million worth of cuts, value engineered cuts. This was one of those cuts. I can't remember who I actually talked to on the planning board. But it was supposed to be I'm freezing up now. Administrative change, as it was voted at the school building committee in the spring. There's $22 million of cuts. This was a $100,000 cut. The path that went behind the Hanlon to the fire access road previously was a path of convenience. I got that term from Steve Olenoff. That path of convenience is just it's basically people walking in the same space, creating a path. On just to the north is Laura Lane, which is a paved road that goes right into the trailhead of the fire access road. That's where the fire engines could possibly go up into when they have. And there's also the north road of the parking lot. That's a paved road that goes right up to the trailhead as well. The Scout House is on that north road, the north parking lot road, if you will. There's less than 100 yards between the two. It's probably closer to 60 to 70 yards in between the two, and in some places less. And so it was an easy value engineer not to have the architects design a paved road or a paved path that would have taken out 12 trees. It was $100,000. It was going to take out 12 more trees. At the time, we were really conscious of trees and trying to keep as many as we could. And that if this path could certainly become a path of convenience if people didn't want to take the north driveway road or Laura Lane to the trailhead. So that's how it became a value. That was an easy value engineer for us. Some of them were very hard decisions. And the town was notified that, hey, we made these changes and we could either do it right then or at the end of the project. And here we are at the end of the project. And it's that's where we're at now.
Elijah, yes.
Yes, Madam Chair and Board. So in terms of the scope of the project, the actual plan indicates a footpath or a dirt path. So the fact that seeking an additional construction of a path, adding gravel or crushed stone, I think that actually even differs from what was indicated or in any specific discussions for a path. I think the idea for the path was to have something that wears down over time and is just kind of used, not necessarily a constructed path.
Yeah, and if I could add to that, so if anyone here remembers what the path looked like before the Hanlon project got started, you may recall that there was literally a footpath that was just worn down by people going in behind the parking lot behind the school, walking up the hill where there was a trailhead sign, and then continuing on over to the fire access trail. And so the intent behind this dirt path was to basically replace that in kind. And if people are familiar with going on hiking trails, there's no stone on hiking trails. They are all just worn by foot. And so they all, the intention behind this with Lowell Woods is that was to have it remain as much in nature without harming any other trees. Introducing stone or any sort of a sub base along that route would require some removal of roots and potentially additional trees dying. So again, the reasoning was just to create a natural pathway to connect from that was similar to what was there before.
Right, and actually, I just want to jump in for 1 second, Phil, because I'm hearing a couple of different conversations here. My takeaway from what I heard from the residents and others who were unhappy with the finished product where the trail was supposed to be wasn't necessarily that they wanted gravel and certainly not a constructed sidewalk, but exactly what you said. They expected to see what was there before, and what they got was a lawn. And I did go look at it. I would have had no idea that that's where the dirt path was supposed to be. So my thinking was, I don't want to see anything that disturbs nature. How do you fast forward 20 years of people walking on the path? I think the expectation that I was hearing from people was that it would be a little bit more evolved and worn down, or in some way, like at least mow it. I don't know, like mow something to kind of help expedite the natural process of it wearing down. And that's what I heard was what was upsetting people, is that it really was just a lawn. There was no indication that there was a trail there. And part of that was, I think the hope that I heard at least was to discourage people from going through Laurel Lane and maybe take the school property, keep them out of the neighborhood and take it from the school path instead. But it wasn't obvious that that was where people were supposed to go because there's no signage. And until those flags went up, I wouldn't have known that's where it was supposed to go either. It was a lovely lawn. It looked really nice, but it didn't say to me, this is where you go to go connect to the trail. So that's where I think I heard there was some of the concern, not that they wanted a sidewalky paved path, nor did they necessarily want gravel, but they just wanted something that was closer and maybe would evolve faster into something more like what was there before. So that's what I don't think we need to continue. And I mean, of course, if other board members want to, but I don't know that we need to keep talking about the why we don't want to construct an asphalt path. I think we're all on the same page about that. That's the sense I get. Um, so just to kind of, that's what I was hearing is what people were looking for. And I was just kind of wanted to focus the conversation a little bit. But I'm sorry, Phil, I started talking before I saw your hand go up and then I was already up.
No,
So
that was fine. Um, I'm going to look at it from a little bit of a different angle, which is separate from substance, but focusing on process. And this is, the second process issue that I'm finding difficulty understanding. Essentially, this is a fait accompli. You're saying that we had $22 million in cuts, and it was an issue that, going back to the planning board, could have disrupted the apple cart. We had a similar issue with the solar array at the high school. How do we know that this process issue just does not keep on occurring if we get a Thurston Middle School? We get a project that's going to be, because there is you know, there is lots of things that are being discussed in the queue, and it is troubling to me that process is really ignored in some respects. And I would be far more willing to just simply say, your arguments make a lot of sense on a timely basis. When it's not on a timely basis, I have a lot more trouble with it. So I am open and very, very eager to hear why this process is an anomaly as compared to a pattern.
I can respond to that a little bit. So and maybe Nora and Elijah can also correct me, but you know, the process that we go through is that we go through the planning board, receive a permit early on, right, in design development. We need to submit our applications in time so that we have enough time to go through the permitting process, continue with our drawings, and then issue it out to bid. So we're not going to get our permit when we have 100% construction documents prepared, right? So, so because of that, our drawings no one's drawings are going to be 100% complete when we come to get the permit.
But Roberto, that's every project. That's Everett Street. That happens all the time.
Right. So inevitably, even during construction, right, there are changes that are made
all the time
through the stormwater and so on, and there's a determination that's made whether this is whether the item is considered a major change in the construction or whether it's minor enough so that is an administrative change.
Wait a minute. You said there is a determination. Is that your purview or is that the purview of someone else? Because that's part of the issue. And it's not that this is not an isolated incident. And the thing is, this is not something that is never come up before us in the past. We have had other projects. We just had Everett Street come back, and there was some issues that came up that we were a little surprised about in terms of water and other issues, which is not for the purpose of this meeting. The thing that I am troubled with is that this is a pattern. And when you say it is determined, who is the determining person when there's no notice being given to the planning board? So that's my concern.
I see Amanda's hand up. I have a feeling she might have an answer to that.
Okay.
But that's a good question. Amanda.
So just something that kind of happens on the staff side is whenever there's a change, which, like Roberta said, usually comes up in the construction process. So it's usually after we're kind of wrapping up the planning side of things. And it's usually when it's going through the building permit process, then there can be changes. And the building commissioner, as our zoning enforcement officer, is the one who ultimately makes determinations on whether a change is de minimis and can just be a note in the file versus what needs to go back to the board or what can be handled administratively through an administrative application to the planning division. And Elijah is consulted on those as well as the town planner. But
Amanda, respectfully, that's an entirely separate issue, which is separate timely notice to the planning board, which is completely separate. We are apprised as a board way too far after the fact, and then a fait accompli is presented, and the process is a problem in my perspective. This is only me, I'm not speaking for others, but that's something that has happened in other circumstances, and it is difficult for us to be able to, we may have input and completely agree with you, but the simple fact is when it is put and you are saying we're now 99% down down the end of the path, simply, just rubber stamp it and do this. I have a lot of trouble with that. So I've said my piece.
Thank you. Mike, I see your hand up, but piggybacking on that, I guess I have 3 quick questions. So I understand, I know what the permit conditions say, because at the end of the day, we did issue a permit based on the plans that we reviewed. Did the building commission, I suppose if the building commissioner had decided this change was de minimis, that they wouldn't be before us right now. Was there an administrative approval? I'm trying to figure out why, if any of these circumstances applied, we're now having this conversation. I'm just a little confused.
Precisely.
So
Elijah, Amanda, both,
Yeah. So to be clear, this wasn't a de minimis change in this case. It was more of just explaining how changes are fielded when
But-
they come to us.
But then why wasn't it timely if it was not de minimis? That's the question. We are now at this stage. If it was not considered de minimis, whether by the staff or anyone else, how can we possibly say the process worked or this is a timely notification?
So I believe in the process, the footpath wasn't supposed to be on the plan in the first place. So when it got approved with the footpath being indicated on the plan, that wasn't something that was to be included on the plan. And so this modification is to go with what was originally supposed to be proposed, which was a plan without the footpath.
Okay, but that doesn't
So-
answer the question, which is the timely notice, and completely could agree with you, Elijah. Totally understand your perspective. It is a process issue that is troubling me, that there is this stage of where everything is being done, and now we're being told.
Yeah, I just want to talk, Phil, I agree with you. But I want to go deeper into a little bit about why it's an issue, because it's not, I mean, yes, there's a process issue and different boards in the town have different, purviews over doing things, and that's important, obviously. But the issue here is that while this was happening, no one was told. The public wasn't told. There was no notice of a meeting to change it. The public couldn't weigh in. For a couple years, all these people who are now very angry were trying to figure out what's going on, right? And there was no avenue for information. No one told them. They had no voice in the situation. And now again, 3 years later, we're here, and I'm hearing it from the residents, from the abutters, from the people who say they were promised this. And one of the things I do want to listen to tonight is, if someone wants to comment out there from the public, it was said in June that there was a specific promise made. We didn't get into details about what that meant. How was that promise made? Was it made in a meeting? What was said? I'd like to learn a little bit more about what was promised to the public. And I think the troubling thing about this process issue is that there was no way for that public to weigh in or know what was going on, precisely because the process wasn't followed.
But then again, and the accountability is supposed to be us and the staff, and we are the ones that answer and should answer, and I say that to myself, to the public, and the public is has a right to complain about it. But if we don't get notified, we can't answer to the public, and the public knows even less than we do.
I see Elijah's hand up. I think, Elijah, if you have some.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify in terms of public comment and in general. So the planning board did seek public comment from 2 boards comprised of residents and public members of the public. So 2 public entities, and the comments that we have received that were not in favor of this were from 2 individuals. So I just wanted to clarify that it's not public kind of in the abstract.
When was
I mean-
that, Elijah? When were those comments?
We had 2 public comments at the I think it's the July 29th planning board meeting, or the meeting before that.
Man,
And
You're talking about recently during this time period.
correct.
Okay, but this
Yeah,
is after the fact.
And I'd love, once we finish this discussion, if Steve Olenoff is on or someone else is on, they could just shed light on what was going on a couple years ago and what those discussions were, because I think that would be helpful for me to understand, how big of a promise was this, what discussions were going on at the time. So thank you.
Thank you. And I'm not sure who's here in the public that could speak to things, but I think there's at least one person. And yes, Elijah.
Oh no, that's
Oh, that was a legacy hand. Okay. Just making sure. I think board wise, like I don't really have anything to add beyond like what I said. I don't feel the need for a curated path, but I think I would like to see some effort made to, and if it's already happening, I looked recently and it looked like it is starting to wear down, but I like the idea of a path of convenience because that is what was there before, like for like, but I'd like to feel like that's actually starting to take shape. And I see Tim's hand up.
Yeah, just to add to that, I swung by, seeing this on the agenda today, just to take a quick look earlier today, and it wasn't very noticeable to me or visible. I'd say it was, fairly poor signage wise. To your point, Ellen, I think at least there could be something to be done there outside the context of some of these other process issues if we're talking about the path itself. But just wanted to add that.
Thank you. I'd wanted to get over there. I'd gone by back in May and it was still pretty much a lovely lawn. So there was really no foot traffic happening. So I'm happy to hear it sounds like there's some foot traffic happening, but yeah, I don't know if there's something low impact that can be done to help that evolve in a slightly accelerated natural way. That's what I heard people were looking for, but that's probably a good segue into opening it up to public comment, because I'd like to hear what other people's thoughts are as well. Were there any other comments or questions from board members at this time?
I just want to say I want to hear the public comments, but I think a way to frame the issue, Ellen, because I think legally, in order to like touch the land in any way, and I agree with you. I want to do something lightly that's cost effective, that makes it look nicer than it looks now, that has the proper signage. Legally, we might have to get the exemption just to make sure we're on completely solid ground doing that. Again, I didn't hear an objection in that disability commission letter from the town doing something like that. I heard the objection being, please don't spend your money making this ADA compliant, spend your money doing other things for, individuals with disabilities in other parts of town. So I think, we might want to get an opinion from town council if the board agrees to continue exploring this a little bit to see if that's an option. But that's kind of where I'm thinking, but I want to hear the public too, and particularly if members of the public attended that meeting. On what was kind of said, because I can only read this letter. I wasn't at that discussion.
Sorry, I had a coughing fit. Thank you. That's a good reminder about the potential legal situation. Thank you for that. All right, then at this time, I would open it up to public comment. I do see Peter Schuler has his hand raised. If we could enable Peter to speak, and Peter, if we could just have your full name and address for the record.
Good evening. Thank you, Madam Chair. This is Peter Schuler at 779 Gay Street. I have a statement, but I just wanted to touch on a few things that have been discussed early on, and then I'll get to the statement that I have prepared. The first issue is that I was at the Commission on Disability meeting. I don't believe anybody on this group here attended the meeting. So I was there, and there was a robust discussion about two particular things. Did they support the petition to drop the trail? And they did not support that. Did they? And the main issue that was discussed is, would they object to some small modification to the end of the trail? And there was no objection to that. And I think that's what was highlighted in that letter. They didn't feel like there would be any issue by completing that pathway. So that was the first thing I wanted to bring up. The second thing was in response to Mike's question, this trail was discussed at the Permanent Building Committee meeting on August 5th, 2021, minute 44:10 on the tape. You can review that. So it was brought up, and that's where this idea of a trail that would connect from the Scout House up to the existing pathways was discussed, and I believe the word was promised, but that's what that's what I took it as. So, as many of you know, I have followed this issue for more than a year and realize now that the footpath being discussed will never be completed. I'm disappointed that such a front-facing part of the project that was discussed from the very beginning was eliminated by the school department 3 years ago, but never brought to the attention of the planning board until the project was completed and all the funds had been spent. My biggest disappointment is that all that is needed is low-cost landscaping improvements on the first 250 feet of the path and some signage. As we now know, the town's Commission on Disability raised no objections to the improvements and signage requested. As a result, I now understand that no matter what's discussed, promised, voted on, and approved by the taxpayers, those promises may never be fulfilled. The biggest negative impact for me is that I am now skeptical and unlikely to support any future school department building proposals because I realize that you don't get really what you're told you're going to get sometimes. The Pine Hill School is a magnificent benefit to the citizens of Westwood, and I don't want this issue to overshadow all the good work that has been done by so many people that were involved. I respect the process and appreciate the work done by the planning board, but I'm resolved to the fact that no matter how you vote tonight, that footpath will never be completed by the school department. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. John, I saw your hand go up. I'm happy to let you speak.
Okay, so in that August, that's when we discussed the fire access path, right? So for whatever reason, somebody cut down trees that they shouldn't have. And that, so there's a terminology going back and forth. There's a path of convenience, which is what Peter's talking about. And that's from, it used to go from the Hanlon back up through maybe a 3-foot wide path that went up to the trailhead at the end of Laura Lane where the fire access road began, or access trail. Everybody calls it something different, so I'm not really sure how to designate it differently. We actually, during the project, the whole left side of that path disappeared. That the path of convenience from the school disappeared. The path of convenience, actually part of it is part of the North Road. It runs parallel with the North Road. Then there's a hill that comes up and you can still see where that path of convenience, the last 15 yards from the trailhead headed toward where the old Hanlon was. The fire access trail, which is the whole, it's not a road, it's a trail, it's a fire access trail. They cut it through, it goes all the way. I talked with Steve Olenoff. We actually met on the trail. He was looking at it, I was looking at it. And that's what we were talking about 100%. It had to do with the trees, how we're going to follow the contract. And you guys all know, or the Conservation Committee, in the contract, any trees that were cut down erroneously based upon the caliper would be replaced. And we've done all that. All I can tell you is that when we valued when the permanent building committee, not the permanent building commission, the school building committee valued engineer out $2 million. That's what this path was, realized that it wasn't going to be an architectural design path. It was, if people wanted it, it would go back to a path of convenience. And that means there's no maintenance by the school for that. If the school changes the landscape, they're responsible for that landscape. I mean, we got, Phil's a lawyer, he knows all about, once you change the natural order of things, you're responsible for that. If you didn't shovel your sidewalk, you're not responsible for the snow. If you shoveled your sidewalk and ice goes on there, you're now responsible for that sidewalk. The school does not want the responsibility of people walking up a hill in between trees on their property. They have a north road that goes right to the trailhead, and there's a Laura Lane, which is a public road that goes right to the trailhead. And they're within 50, 60, 70 yards of each other at the widest point, and it goes right to the head where you can take 3 steps and be on all 3. I understand Mr. Schuler's frustration with the process. During that $2 million worth of valued engineered, there was school building committee meetings. They're all on tape, as far as I know. And those were public meetings that people could go to. And there were people from the PTO came, parents came. I don't know, we can't do, when we're volunteering to do on these boards, people have asked us to go to all these meetings for them and report out. And that's what we do. That's what the planning board does. There's not a 16,000 people watching this meeting. There's only a few. We are doing the best we can to do what we can do. we had to value engineer out $2 million because we knew just the electrical cost alone was going to increase $1 million. It all got valued engineered out. I know that at the AOC meetings, multiple town officials could watch live or participate in person. To your point, Phil, perhaps there's a better way of communicating. I mean, obviously you can't go in between meetings because time is money. And if you stop construction for the 28 days because you just missed the planning board, your costs just jumped up tremendously. So there has to be some kind of medium in between. Anytime we did any change orders, I always make sure that I talked to at least somebody from the town hall, whether it was Mike or Nora or who was before Amanda? I can't remember. She was very nice, tall, blonde lady. But
Abby McCabe.
yes, and Elijah. I try to make sure that from the Permanent Building Commission's point of view is we're in charge of making the change orders and we have care, custody, control of the project. We also try to communicate as best we can. This path of convenience that Peter's talking about was never part of when it went out to bid in May, it was not part of the contract. It got valued engineered out beforehand.
That's
It's-
bullshit.
Okay, I'm sorry, Peter, but we need to maintain some decorum. I apologize.
That's unacceptable.
Yeah, we can't talk like that. I did see Nora's hand go up. Nora.
I just wanted to just relay my recollections. So the planning board approved the entire project in 2021. In 2022, Roberto did come back to the board with some proposed changes. They were initially proposed as administrative, and the building commissioner determined that they were not administrative. They required a minor modification by the planning board that involved landscape changes, some drainage changes. And it went to the planning board, and the planning board determined that those were minor. I think that this sidewalk, path, trail, whatever we want to call it, was simply missed. I also went back and I looked at the original discussions during the public hearing for the original project in 2021, and this sidewalk was not specifically called out at any planning board hearing on the project. It was not specifically discussed, and I don't think it was on anyone's radar. I'll also point out we went through several town planners in the interim, and it wasn't on the most recent town planners' radar as well. So in January of 2025, Roberto noticed that this was an issue. I believe it was originally raised as an issue by Peter, and I believe Steve Allnuff had also pointed out, and they asked why this path had not been put in. Roberto then called me in January 2025 and asked how to proceed, and I described the process of going back for another minor modification. That application, I believe, was filed in April, and it has been before the planning board ever since. And the planning board has asked for input from various sources. And I think that the response has consistently been that the funds for the school were spent, that this was cut. It was not considered by those who were doing the value engineering something that was contrary to the plan that was approved. When we went back and looked at the plan in January, and we did see clearly that there was a line on the plan that could have been interpreted by the planning board or by residents to indicate a sidewalk, we told Roberta that that would need to come for a modification, and now it's before you to consider. So I think the questions that you have to consider is if there's something that you would like to see there instead of a full sidewalk. I think you need to consider where the funds will come from to pay for that, and whether or not it would meet the ADA requirements. Mike has suggested that we go forward with some type of an appeal process on that. Whether that would be successful or not, I don't know. But again, we have the question of funding this item, and we have the other issue of it being the school department's property. It's under their care, custody, and control. And this is something that they do not want to put in for liability concerns that John just mentioned. So I think you have all of those concerns that you need to discuss. I would recommend that the first question you ask is whether in 2021, the plan that was approved would have been denied if that line was not there showing the plan. If that is not the case, then I think you should discuss whether there's a suitable alternative or whether the path can be eliminated. But I don't think this is certainly not something that was intentionally withheld. It was overlooked on several fronts. And it was not a matter that was a subject of discussion. Much like the plantings on the fire road, they were a significant matter of discussion. The board spent a lot of time on that. They spent a lot of time on a question of porous pavement in the parking lot. They spent a lot of time on the design of the building, the location of the playground. This path just simply was not discussed. And it was missed. So it's back before you now. The board tonight has to determine whether or not they consider this a minor modification or a full modification. If you consider full modification, then this would have to be scheduled for a public hearing. If you consider it a minor modification, you can take it up, consider it granted, or not granted, or granted with conditions. But I just think it's important to be clear about how we got to where we are now. And it was not, there was no intentional neglect, and there was no one was looking to hide anything. This was simply a line on the plan that was missed.
Thank you, Nora. I understand the explanation that it was a mistake, but I guess that's a completely separate conversation because it was there. And I don't know whether it wasn't discussed because everybody just said, okay, that looks great. Or, it's hard to determine. And it was on the plan. For me, it's like where I am now is it was on the plan. So it sounds like to some level there was an expectation and it did become part of the plan that we approved as part of our permit. And I think process wise, that's where I'm trying to resolve. I understand it probably is a minor modification, but I'm still wrapping my head around but how do we find a way to maybe meet the expectation that was set, whether it was set inadvertently or not? But I appreciate that background. I think that's helpful. Phil.
Yeah, I think we're missing some of the point, whether, this was intentionally or not. Part of what was discussed was that, a determination was made in order to put this either at the time or at the end, and some determination was made to put it at the end. But the same issue, which is separate from the substance of this, whether we call it a sidewalk, path, trail, whatever, is process. And the process is chronically underperforming and a problem because we don't get timely notification. We are not being apprised. And many times when something needs to become, it is expected to be rubber stamped. I do not believe accountability of the planning board includes not being timely notified. Yet then you're apprising the board and saying, well, you have to find the money. Well, there is different ways, and perhaps we would agree if there had been a timely notification, because quite honestly, I think the planning board and the prior boards that I've sat with are extraordinarily reasonable and whatnot. But the process is a huge problem and it's chronic. And that's where we are where we are today, but it happens all the time. And that's something that needs to be addressed.
Thank you, Phil. Oh, I do see, I do want to share this. Peter Schuler said he completely apologizes. He did not realize he was still on. I understand. Hot mic. Were there any other comments from board members? I don't see any other public comment. I don't see anyone else with their hands raised, or I don't see anything else in the.
I see the Q&A. Oh, no. Oh, I see Peter's comments. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, no worries. So I'm wondering if there's any other. Mike, yes. I saw a hand. It took me a minute to.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, I'm trying to wrap my head around this because I appreciate John's comments. I appreciate Nora's comments. When I read the bylaws on what type of decision we're trying to make tonight, I read the decision as being what's best in the public interest, when determining whether this is a minor modification. And I am hearing some conflicting things on how important this was to the community at the time, the level of public engagement on this particular facet of the design. We had one person come comment tonight, but it doesn't sound like we have anyone else. I guess process wise, I think is still the biggest concern because, I'm also kind of hearing more that, that like just from a substantive matter, like the school committee does not want this path, period. And when I hear that, they should put up a sign saying this is not a place to walk on, right? Like they do not want this to be a path. They do not want people walking on that. That's a little different than what I was understanding this. I was understanding this being purely a legal impediment that wasn't kind of explored more deeply, perhaps because there were a million other details to attend to, and I was hoping to find some type of compromise there. But if the school does not want to deal with the path, does not want to deal with this, I would rip the flags up that are sitting there now because they don't look nice. I'd rip the flags up and I'd make it a lawn, and people shouldn't walk on it. Um, I just kind of my head is kind of like going in all different directions with all this information. And ultimately, this is their property, and I'm not going to tell them what to do with it. And I guess from a process issue, if this was a big issue a few years ago, I just wish this had been communicated beforehand to them in more of a timely manner, because it does undermine the public trust. I know the Peter's trust is undermined. I don't know how many other people out there feel that way, but this process issue undermines the public trust. It's just an example of it. Um, but I am hesitant on telling the school committee on what they should be doing with their property. I just wish they had owned it more in the moment. So that's kind of where I am on that. I'd love to hear everyone else's final thoughts, and I'll kind of try to figure out what type of motion I'll support.
I just want to say, if I could just jump in,
Yeah,
Ellen, I
of
just want to
course,
say,
of course.
my biggest issue, again, is not on this particular. I think we probably have a path forward, to use the word. And I want to say to John specifically, we contribute a huge amount of time, and there is a great deal of appreciation for that. My concern is more with the next building, the next one that comes up, because since it has happened multiple times in the past, how do we give an assurance? And it's not just you guys, it's also the planning and the economic development staff. But we need to rebuild some of the trust, as Mike is saying, with the public. And the only way we can do that is if we, as part of that process, take accountability and make sure the next one, because we all know there are problems at Thurston, there are problems everywhere else, and we need to try to take the proactive steps to avoid it in the future. And that means making sure that we, open it up and we are apprised. So people have that opportunity. They can come to, if there's something on the agenda of the planning board, then they can watch the video, they can attend the meeting or whatever. But that's my biggest issue, that as a chronic problem, it needs at some point to finally be addressed. So, and I want to just thank you you do a ton of stuff, John, and you're a great guy. And even if I used to kick your butt in basketball with my kids.
Thanks, Phil. Elijah, I saw your hand up.
Yes, so I do believe, Madam Chair, that this topic has been dissected. I think one thing that may help in going forward with school projects, maybe that there's a pre-application meeting before the planning board prior to them actually submitting a full application package. And I would just recommend Madam Chair and the board look to a motion of whether they are determining this minor or major.
Well, I had one final question based on the information that we heard about the school committee or the school department doesn't want liability at all. I'm just curious what that means. I mean, because that's a little different. I mean, the reality is there was a path of convenience there before, which I would argue there was liability attached to that. Because like with the sidewalks, I lived in Boston and I was going to get in trouble if I didn't shovel my sidewalk, and I was still going to get in trouble if I did and someone fell. So, or on my front steps here. I mean, there's liability either way. So I guess I'm a little taken aback to hear that now they don't even like a path of convenience isn't okay either. Because I was looking for a yes, we'll do what we can to make the path of convenience as accessible as possible, not handicap acceptable or ADA compliant, but you know, more obvious. So I'm a little jammed up by that. And I did see Nora and Elijah's hands go up.
So my understanding is there is a significant difference between a path of convenience and a signed path that leads people to walk on the grass leading to a trail. They
Okay.
are two different things. And the original path of convenience, when this was the Hanlon School that led up to the Lowell Woods, was not an intentional path. It was created by people from this location. The original path itself started at the trailhead, which was at the top of the hill. It was never intended by the school committee that people walk all the way from where the Girl Scout house is now up to that area. That's just what people chose to do. And if people choose to do that in the future, I do not think that invites liability to the school committee. But if they design a path and place signs directing people, then I think that's a different matter. I also just wanted to point out that I think a lot of the problems that you're sensing came from past years where the relationship between the school department and the town was not as strong as it is now. We saw symptoms of this recently in the Amoresco solar project and the need to replace and to demonstrate that so many trees have been removed at the high school over the years. We are at a much better place now, and we are actually meeting tomorrow to review sites for trees to be placed at the high school. I have very frequent conversations with Lemma at the school department now. I think we have turned things around significantly, and I don't expect to see the same miscommunication or lack of communication that went on for years before. So I'm hopeful that things are moving in the right direction and that you will be more comfortable with school projects in the future.
Thank
Laura,
you.
will those discussions be communicated to the board?
Discussions about the trees? Is that what you said?
Yes.
Sure, I'd be happy to. It's not on your agenda tonight, but I'd be happy to add it to the next agenda and we can discuss it then. Ellen is taking part in the meeting with Lemma tomorrow.
I can report out at our next addition boards and committee liaison, whatever, or before that. And Nora, I appreciate that because so it sounds like there's not going to be a concerted effort to stop people from walking in any particular place. We're just not going to encourage it.
That is my understanding. So that
Okay.
if you did anything to encourage it, that would
That's a problem.
raise their concerns.
Okay, that is helpful because I had kind of a visceral reaction to, oh, well, that like prohibiting is actually even more beyond what I had been entertaining. So I appreciate that. That is helpful. Okay.
Do we know where the flags come from? Are those neighbors who put those up? Is that it looks like it's like the town that put those up? There's flags that indicate where you should walk. It looks like it's in a very kind of quote unquote cheap way. It doesn't look well to me, but it looks like it's under construction almost. Do we know what that's about?
I saw John. John, if you want to speak to that.
One of the neighbors put the flags up just to show where he thought the path should be. It has
Okay.
nothing to do with the permanent building committee or the school department.
I mean, that's your property, right? You got to take those
No,
down.
no. I'm on the permanent building commission.
I mean,
Town
someone should
votes
take
for it,
them
we
down.
build it in.
Town property, right?
So every once in a while, somebody will put extra flags up and
Yeah.
went out and put down 232 flags to mark all the trees that they thought were cut down.
Okay.
Instead of just brush. Hopefully he picks them up and then it'll look much better.
Well, sorry, last question. I don't want to, we've talked about this a lot, but what is the correct way to get onto these trailheads? Because I think that is animating a lot of the passion around this. Are they supposed to go on Laura Lane? It sounds like that's the best way to hit those
The trailhead
trails.
is literally for the fire engines. Since COVID, people have started to use them tremendously, but the fire access trail is for the fire engines to get back in there. Right? Like 3 or 4 years ago, there was a 12-acre fire back there that most people don't know about. The fire
Yeah.
department they just go back there and do their thing. So they go right down Laura Lane, and that's where the trailhead is, where that circle is.
Yeah.
Right there, and also on the North Road, there's like a 4-step little path of convenience, if you will, from the road right in, right at just before the corner. You can almost see it on there.
Yeah, no, I think we reviewed this a little bit last time, and I'm on the pet and bike committee now, and I know the next meeting, Steve Olenoff is gonna give me an earful about the comment you just made, but I'll take your word for it. I think a lot of residents do see this as more of a public resource as well, though.
A lot of the bikes I've noticed have gone down Laura Lane and just jumped right on the fire access road from there. And
Yeah.
then there's paths all up and in there that, by virtue of route, people have made them. They're not a fire access trail. They're just paths for bike riding or dog walking.
To that point, you can also go down the school path, the school road here, and then you can hop on to the lane from this entry point. So you could bypass Laura Lane completely and still
Are you
have.
talking about the path right by the sidewalk there?
I'm
Right there?
I'm saying right here, you can walk on the actual road and then go to the back of the school.
I mean,
If you wanted to be on a sidewalk there, if you scroll down a little bit further, Elijah, right in between the two ball fields, there is a sidewalk that isn't. Keep going over to Gay Street. Yeah, so there's a sidewalk right there that intersects in between the two ball fields. This was intentionally placed here for all the walkers and students that live in the neighborhood to walk up that sidewalk. That is an accessible route, and which continues on up to the school, but also continues to the right once you cross up by the bus loop there, and then heading to the north by the gym. Then you could potentially just go from there directly over to that fire access trail. So that would be the most.
You have 500 kids out in recess during different times of day. I don't think that's the best use of a public way, going onto the trails there, but that's the issue for a different day. I don't think that it's heavily trafficked, which is good because I think there's just tons of kids around there. But I've said my piece. I think the school department can own this decision. In my view, to my board members, I'm not going to interfere at this point, but the next one I will be, I might feel a little more like Phil right now, and from a process perspective, but at this point, I think I'm done expressing how I feel about this. So thank you all.
Thank you. I did see there's one more public comment. Peter Schuler. The flags have been down for a month. They were put up for planning board members to see where the original footpath is shown on the architectural drawings. Thank you. So it sounds like the flag situation has been resolved. Okay. I do think we have given this a thoughtful, significant discussion. So I think we've taken public comment, we've done all that. It sounds like if we can agree on a motion, we would have a couple, if we were to take action on this, a couple of motions to go through.
Mike, you gonna be stepping up, or you want me?
Sorry, I was on mute, Phil.
You were muted.
Go ahead.
I was on mute. I move that the planning board determine the modification of the environmental impact design review approval for 790 Gay Street as described in the application, therefore submitted to the planning board and filed in the office of the town clerk on May 1, 2025 to be minor in nature.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All right. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, I'm not seeing any board members' hands go up for further discussion. With that, I'll take roll call. Mike?
Aye.
Thank you. Maureen?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Phil?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. That motion carries. And then I think the next motion is the longer motion, whoever would like to read that one.
I'll go. I move that the planning board grant the minor modification of the environmental impact and design review, EIDR, approval for 790 Gay Street as described in the application, therefore, submitted to the planning board and filed in the office of the town clerk on May 1, 2025, subject to the following conditions. 1, except as modified by the conditions and the finding thereof, the project shall comply with the project plans and with the conditions of all prior decisions of the property in all respects, and the applicant shall pursue completion of the project with reasonable diligence and continuity. 2, if the project or any condition imposed in this decision requires any other permit, license, or other approval from any town of Westwood board, commission, or agency, or other Commonwealth or federal regulatory agency, the applicant shall make an appropriate application for the same and shall obtain all required approvals prior to the start of any work. If any condition of such permit, license, or other approval from any other board, committee, or agency is inconsistent with this decision, the applicant shall make application to the planning board for an amendment of this decision, and the planning board shall consider such application in accordance with the requirements of MGL Chapter 40A, Section 90, and all applicable planning board rules and regulations. 3, any proposed alterations, modifications, deletions, or changes to the decision shall be requested in writing to the town planner and building commissioner prior to implementation. A, proposed alterations which are considered de minimis by the building commissioner may be accepted as a note to the file. B, proposed alterations which are considered minor by the building commissioner shall require the filing of a modification application of said approval for review by the planning board at a publicly posted planning board meeting. C, proposed alterations which are determined to be major by the building commissioner or by the planning board shall be considered by the planning board as a formal amendment to the approval and will require a new public hearing before the planning board. 4, a copy of this decision and the project plans shall be kept on the project site at all times during construction.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Excuse me.
I second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I will take roll call. Phil?
Aye.
Maureen?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. That motion carries. All right. And this was not a public hearing, so we don't need to close it. All right. Thank you all. I appreciate everybody's participation. That was a lengthy discussion, but I think it was a valuable discussion. So I appreciate everybody participating and engaging in that.
Personally, appreciate the robust discussion. I think it was very good.
Thank you.
Thank you all. You're doing an
Thank you.
awesome job. And Tim, congratulations and good luck.
Thanks, John.
Thanks,
Thank you.
John.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
you too.
Good
Good night,
night.
everyone.
Thanks, John.
All right. Then our next agenda item is, excuse me, 378 Washington Street, and this is a public hearing, so I will read a portion of the notice to open the hearing. The Westwood Planning Board will hold a remote public hearing on September 30th, 2025 at 7 p.m. via Zoom regarding an application filed by 378 Washington Street LLC for consideration of an environmental impact and a design review EIDR approval pursuant to Section 7.3 of the Westwood zoning bylaw for the purposes of retroactively approving a change of use to a professional services establishment, parking modifications, roof replacement, and other facade alterations of the property at 378 Washington Street, Westwood, Mass. 02090 in accordance with PB-25-42. The facade alterations of the property at 378 Washington Street. The property is in the local business B, LBB zoning district and within flexible multiple use overlay district 6, FMUOD 6. Land affected assessors map 23, lot 219. Property owner is 378 Washington Street LLC. All right. Oh, and I see new faces, so welcome.
Hello. Alex here at Norwood Engineering. I'm here on behalf of Mr. Kring. So we're here to talk about, 378 Washington Street and all the work that's been done to it, and as well as the letter from Beta Engineering. So the work that's been done on the property includes skimming and replacing the existing pavement on site to repair potholes and cracks. The front facade of the building was repainted, some awnings removed, parking lines were placed as well. And so unless there's anything anyone wants to add, I'd like to jump right into the comments from Beta Group.
Sure, thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Elijah.
if I may, I just want to preempt the board. So tonight, I don't believe we have all of the materials to come to that the board would need to come to a full decision. And so if the board would, this would be more of a introduction to the project, and at a further meeting, the applicant would be able to update the plans to bring it to the board for a full vote.
Thank you. So the intention is to kind of have a brief overview, give any feedback that, I'm just summarizing here, give any feedback to the applicant that we would want or expect to see at the next hearing, and then take public comment briefly and then continue the hearing. Okay.
That is correct.
Thank you. Okay, so with that in mind, we'll keep that lens as we continue on through the conversation. Thank you.
So for comments G1 and G2 in the general section, it was about accessible parking and ADA regulations for ramps. I discussed, I believe earlier today with Elijah, we found in the regulations that if there's a lot with under 15 parking spaces, this is not required. I think Elijah did comment on the town submission website that this is not required anymore. So I will just skip over those. But those items will be removed from our plan. So they're no longer our updated and revised site plan set that will revise, well, just one sheet will not include a ramp anymore and will not include a handicap parking space. Thank you. So yeah, right by the building, there was a space, or there was a ramp, and then there was a space at the upper right corner of the lot. So going into the rules and regulations, E1 through E8, I'll start with E2. E1 is, I believe, not necessary. I think that was a posted comment as well. For E2, they asked for some contouring on the site. We added spot shots so because the only part of the lot that was being discussed was the front of the lot. We only added spot shots on the front of the lot. It's fairly flat, so there's no way to actually add. They mentioned 2-foot contour intervals. There's no way to add 2-foot contour intervals because it goes from 87 to 88. We just have one contour running through the middle, so we decided that the best way to show is just spot shots. So that was my comment for that. They asked to provide existing water services, underground utility services, and type of sewer line. I believe that Beta Group wanted this because they wanted to know if we were going to be revising the grading on the plan for this ramp. They would like to know locations of services because we are no longer regrading on the property or building a ramp of any kind. We would ask that that no longer be required. It's basically to save the client money and time for people to go out into the field, locate the services, possibly get a dig safe, all this stuff. We just didn't think that was necessary for a plan like this. Going into the Z section, this note is one that I believe will warrant further discussion. It said,
Madam Chair.
Yeah, sorry, I saw Elijah's hands up. I just wanted
Sure.
to, thank you.
Yeah, so my understanding in our discussion earlier was that this would be kind of just an introduction to the project as opposed to a line by line refuting of the peer review. So given that the peer review engineer has not actually been able to, attend to respond to any comments, if you could, as the applicant, just kind of give an overview of what the actual project is.
Sure. So the project was basically to, for the EIDR, we were just answering any comments that were related to this, which included everything from the peer review. That being said, I believe in the beginning it was about getting, showing existing conditions and showing some, we wanted to show some proposed planters, because there was planters in the past. Elijah requested that we put planters, and we thought putting them in a similar location as to where they were before, which is shown on the screen right now, right in front of the building. So we proposed planter boxes in front of the building, and we added a note that plants shall be Massachusetts native species. We showed existing lighting on the building, and basically we went out, we showed the spot shots on the front of the lot, and addressed any comments, which was that we believe that the client improved the lot. And we were that, I mean, that's kind of basically it. The reason I was going through the list is because there was one comment from, so it was Z1 that I think would warrant further discussion at this meeting, because I think that one is important to know what we should do in the future, and how we would further revise the plan, because at the moment, the only revision that, other than taking off the ramp and the handicap parking space, we don't see any other revisions being made necessary other than any other comments that might come from the board.
Thank you. Just for clarification before I jump into board comments, when you talk about existing conditions and clarifying things, the existing conditions involve work that has already been done that required review, such as this prior to work being done that didn't happen first, correct?
Correct, and that's why we are here.
Okay, so typically it's the process, and this is kind of relevant to what we discussed with the prior applicant. It's always more beneficial for the board to be able to give you input on what we believe we would require prior to the work being done.
Understood. And I think that that part of it is that it wasn't, both to my client and I guess to ourselves, we didn't do any work on this property in the past, but to our own, if it was me on this property, I wouldn't have known that skimming the surface of the property and then repaving would have warranted going to the EIDR. I understand there was further things that happened on the property that may have warranted, but I think the client, he made improvements to the building and basically skimmed the surface of his property and paved to the same limits that there was before, and didn't change the grades on the property itself. So I think that is the reason that it just didn't come to mind that something like this would have been submitted. And that might be that's just my perspective, and I could let Mr. Kring comment on that.
Yeah, thank you. I see one of my staff's hands up, and I do see Mr. Kring as well. Amanda, I'll start with you and then we'll go to Mr. Kring.
Yeah, so just a point of clarification for the board, and this was in your meeting packet as well as in the comment from our building commissioner. It was the number of changes altogether that warranted the approval. So one of those, like one little thing may have not triggered an approval, but because it was resurfacing, restriping, removing the window awnings, removing the planter boxes, replacing the roof shingles and changing the color, changing out the lighting fixtures and a new reface sign, as well as changing the use. That's what ultimately triggered the need for approval. It was all of them being combined.
Just for my memory, would the changing the use would trigger approval regardless, correct?
If it's a by right use, it's an administrative approval. If it's a not by right, then it comes to the board. So like if it's something that requires a special permit.
Okay. And it was the volume of all the changes combined, put it all together, it needs approval. But I think my point is still this, if all these changes were going to be made, I understand that maybe it wasn't,
Yeah, yeah.
but yeah, that it should have come to us first. And I do see Mr. Kring's hand up.
Yeah, thank you. So in hindsight, that's great to know. But to give you the genesis of this, essentially, I'm a young guy. I'm 36. We purchased this property for my wife's firm, and it's a massive investment for us. And we purchased it. There were holes all throughout the parking lot that posed a public safety risk to members of the town because people turn around in our parking lot every day of the week, multiple times a day. And students walking to and from school in whatever directions they're going cut through our parking lot. And so we, being responsible citizens, said, oh, okay, let's just skim coat the pavement here, make it nice and have a nice curb appeal. There were no lines. We put some lines in. None of that requires a permit that we could tell with respect to a building permit that we were aware of. There were some old rusted, if you put the photo back up, you can get a sense of what the property looked like prior. Building awnings that looked terrible that were left over from when Sotheby's had been there years prior. Multiple owners before us. And by the way, there had been no change of use applications with any of those changes over the years, but the bylaws had changed, we've come to learn. And there was a planter that had no plants in it, and abandoned brackets on the top of the roof. You can see some cement that was used to fill in some of the potholes in the parking lot, and things like that. And so when this originally came to my attention from the building commissioner saying, hey, you really need you need to go through an EIDR here, that was not something that we had heard of. And so I asked some questions, and I spoke with Elijah, and I spoke with the building commissioner. I looked down, I'm like, well, I don't need a permit to stain the brick white, which actually keeps it conforming with the buildings on either side of us, as you can see in this picture here. I don't need it to, remove these awnings. What is it? And that's when we learned, well, it's actually all of these things added up, plus you're changing the use. And I said, well, it was a corporate office for a flooring company. This is an accounting office. How's that a change of use? And I guess it has to do, as the building commissioner said, with going from a trade type of office to a professional type of office. And so I said, I asked Mike at the time, I said, how would I have known? And come to find out, there was a weak link, which was the roofer that we used did not initially pull a building permit, which was unbeknownst to me, right? I'm just hired someone, asked them to pull a permit. It's in the agreement and everything. And somehow that was an oversight by their office. And so what Mike said to me is, if they had come to me and said, we're going to put a new roof on, then I would have said, well, we have to look at the whole scope and what's going on here. So I just want the board to understand where I'm coming from. I'm a young guy. I'm not from Westwood. I didn't even know what an EIDR was. It wasn't like I was going in and putting on an addition to the building or something without a permit. These were very minor cosmetic changes that were just an effort to be a good citizen and take care of the investment that we've made in the town, and try to contribute with the dramatic changing landscape in that area, which is really, what I've learned is that was once a forgotten part of Westwood, and really there's been a lot of development there that is beautiful, and in large part thanks to this board's work as well. And there's new buildings going in there, and so we were just trying to give a facelift. So we're not here as people who were just disregarding the town's processes and such. You know, I'm here as just a someone who wasn't aware that these things would add up, or that going from one type of office, it wasn't like it was a factory before, it was literally an office to a different type of office. All these things add up, trigger that. And so that's why we're here. Just so you have a little bit of a genesis of what transpired from my standpoint.
Thank you. And that is helpful just for me as a board member thinking about process, that we do have some new commercial property owners that would not be aware of these things. So that's a conversation for another day for the board to maybe help brainstorm how we can make that a little bit more obvious and easier for new commercial property owners to understand and access our bylaws so that they are aware of what might trigger certain thresholds. So I appreciate your explanation. Thank you. I see both Nora and Elijah's hands up. I think Elijah's hand was up first.
Nora, you can go ahead.
Thanks.
So I just wanted to point out, just for clarification, Amanda was explaining that it was several things together that triggered the planning board review, but an administrative review was always needed. So I just want to point out that your zoning bylaw, section 7.3.2.2, is unequivocal. Reconfiguration, restriping, or expansion by 3 or more parking spaces of a parking area or facility containing 5 or more parking spaces requires EIDR, Environmental Impact Design Review. So you restriped a parking lot, that alone triggered design review. The change of use also alone triggered design review. If either of those issues had been required on their own, they would have triggered administrative EIDR approval. It's putting them together that changes it from administrative approval to a board approval. But there was always a need for administrative approval, and that application was required to have been filed before any of the work was done. So just to make sure everyone is on the same page, although it was not intentional, the work was done in ignorance of the zoning bylaw requirements. They clearly require EIDR approval for change of use and for reconfiguration or restriping of a parking lot that contains 5 or more spaces. So there was no doubt it needed to have approval. When it went to the building commissioner to determine whether that approval could be administrative or not, he said it could not. It would have to go to the planning board because of the multitude of decisions that would have to be made, and because of the fact that it was retroactive, that the work had been done without approval in the first place. So, you know, accidents happen. We encourage business owners and property owners, when you purchase a property, become familiar with the laws in that town. And they are all on our website, and we also always stand ready to answer any questions about the zoning requirements.
Thank you, Nora. Very helpful. Elijah, did you still have?
Yeah, so I would just want to reiterate what Nora said. In addition to that, I just would ask Madam Chair, like, I would rather not have this become a back and forth with the applicant, as this is was supposed to be an overview of the project and not a actual you know, full review, as there clearly is more work that needs to be made on the applicant's part, and this was more of an opportunity I proposed, as opposed to actually having this become a full conversation.
Thank you. Thank you for that reminder. I just needed some clarification on that, but you're right. This is becoming more of a discussion than I think we wanted to have for the evening. So with that, I think if we keep the focus on if there's anything in the plans that board members or anything in the comments we got from staff and whatnot and from the peer review that board members feel they want to see clarified, or that you'll definitely be looking for when the applicant comes back, so that we can make sure we give them as much information as possible so that they can give us the most complete plan possible. I'll give you all a minute. And I have one, if it makes sense for me to start, because I did have something. I typically don't start, but as far as the plantings go, that's something I usually pay a fair amount of attention to. So if whoever puts together your planting plan can really make sure that they are truly Massachusetts natives, that will save some time at the next meeting with my comments. Because that's not a guideline, that is a requirement. All right, any other board members that had questions or things they wanted to particularly see when we see this application again? Yes,
I'd
Alex.
still like to refer back to Beta Group's question Z1, and reason being is we do not know. We'd like further clarification on how to proceed on it. They mentioned that impervious surfaces remain consistent. Stormwater flows from the parking area to the abutting properties and to the right of way. Please add some kind of water mitigation. And they mentioned removing pavement at the back of the property. Most of the back of the property, the pavement at the back is and was always Roach Brothers Supermarkets pavement. So removing pavement at the back of property isn't really an option. And in terms of stormwater mitigation, unless the site is completely changed in terms of grading, so that the drainage, and underwater or underground drainage systems are put in, we don't see a method in which we can revise anything to show any kind of stormwater mitigation. As I said before, the lot was paved in the same way. They skimmed. I had the conversation with Mr. Kring, like 1.5 or 2 inches, and then pavement was added on top in the same amount, and the lot stayed the same. And we'd just like to know how to further proceed on that. In my opinion, I don't believe we should be adding any kind of stormwater mitigation to something where impervious area was not added.
Thank you. Elijah, I see your hand up, but I have one quick question for both Nora and Elijah. If memory serves, I remember in other applications, there were conversations that above a certain threshold of change, regardless whether it's the same type and amount of impervious surface, but if you redo the parking lot, sometimes that does trigger the need for stormwater mitigation. So is that the case here?
So, Madam Chair, I had instructed the applicant to respond to this letter produced by Beta line by line, to comment on it and then send it back to Beta for review, so that there could be a discussion between the engineers and not have it in this public forum. So this is a faux pas on my part for actually opening this up. I really should have just asked the board to see if you would like to continue it. But yeah, this is not the forum for this discussion to be had at the moment.
Gotcha. Okay, so that doesn't fall under anything that the board members would like to see expounded on. Okay, it sounds like that needs to be addressed. I mean, the peer reviewer is not here. So we'll table that question. I guess I still, we can figure that out at the next meeting. I am curious about the trigger, the level that triggers requiring stormwater mitigation. I don't know if that is something that's important for the applicant to know today, but Nora, yes.
So there's not a specific level that triggers it. It's required for all properties. So when this property was last developed, we didn't have a stormwater management bylaw. We do have one now. That bylaw requires appropriate stormwater management of all properties. It requires stormwater review and approval by the conservation agent if there's more than 5,000 square feet of a property that is damaged, disturbed, or treated in any manner. So if the paved area amounted to 5,000 square feet, then there would be a stormwater review that would need to be undertaken before the repavement could occur. If it's less than 5,000 square feet, there is not a requirement for that review, but there is still a requirement to meet the stormwater management bylaw requirements. The planning board under EIDR has the right to review a property and determine what is appropriate for stormwater management. And that is up to you to determine the level of change to the property and whether that would be reasonable from an economic standpoint to require additional stormwater control. If the applicant had come to the planning board prior to doing any work on the property and was intending to tear up the asphalt or skin coat it, I believe the planning board probably would have required the addition of at least one storm scepter. Whether you'll require that now that the work was done previously and is completed and there's no intention to do any more work to the site, that's completely in your ballpark to decide. And I think that's what Elijah was talking about, the peer review. The peer review consultant was asked to review this project, and they are recommending that the applicant propose some stormwater mitigation. They've not determined what that should be. They're letting the applicant propose it. If the applicant chooses not to propose anything, that will go back to the peer review consultant, who will then advise the board on what the peer review consultant thinks you should do. But it's up to the board, and it's the board's final decision.
Thank you. That's helpful. So it sounds like that is the guidance. I think we will be looking for something as to what that's going to look like from the applicant. We're not really in a position to give you any guidance on that. So given what we've heard and what Elijah has said, I think unless there are any other comments from board members looking for something specific about the plantings, or if there's anything else, plantings, I just used an example, but if there's anything else specific that my board members see on the plans that they would want to offer guidance to the applicant about, it sounds like there's really nothing else to discuss at this point. I'll give it a second. I'm not seeing anything. As this is a public hearing, I will open it up to public comment. If there's any members of the public that would like to offer comment on this particular application, as we've noted, this isn't meant to be a particularly deep dive with the applicant this evening, and there will be another hearing on this. So if folks are interested, you can offer your comment at the next hearing as well. Either raise your hand or enter your comment in the Q&A, and I'll just give it a second. I am not seeing anything, so we have addressed the idea of public comment. So at this time, I would entertain a motion to continue.
I move that the planning board continue the public hearing for the change of use and site and exterior changes as described in the application, therefore submitted to the planning board and filed in the office of the town clerk on September 2nd, 2025 to Tuesday, October 21, 2025 at 7 p.m. via Zoom, where a Zoom link and associated call numbers will be provided on the town's calendar on the homepage at westwoodma.gov.
Second.
Excuse me. I have a motion. I think I heard a second.
You did.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll take roll call. Maureen?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. That motion carries. All right. We will see you all back in October.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Then our next agenda item is 85 University Avenue. Consideration of a project development review, PDR approval for rooftop wireless communication facilities and associated equipment at 85 University Avenue, the Gables at University Station. All right. Do we have anyone here from the applicant team? We do. Okay. So we'll give that a moment. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Chair.
Nice to see you again.
Happy to be back.
Do you have, it looks like you have at least one other person coming in.
Yes, we have Evelio from C Squared Systems We should have Oscar from Dewberry. I believe Doug should also be here. Brett and Greg Richard, Richard, if I didn't already mention him.
Okay. I think they're all coming into the panelist list. And once you have your team and you're ready, happy to hand you the floor.
Thank you. If you wouldn't mind also, I am logged in on a different device. It should be under Shat, Schwartz, and Fenton. If you
Okay.
can add that as a panelist as well, in case I need to share my screen. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board. My name is Attorney Michael Fenton. I am a partner at the law offices of Shat, Schwartz, and Fenton. Our address is 1441 Main Street, Springfield, Massachusetts. Joined here tonight by the full complement of the Verizon Wireless team and its consultants, Oscar with Dewberry, our A&E firm, Greg, our site acquisition specialist, Avelio with C Squared, representing us for radio frequency questions, if any. I believe Doug is also available if there's any comments or questions on the noise study that was performed consistent with the zoning bylaw, and my colleague, Attorney Brett Smith, also with Shat, Schwartz, and Fenton. The proposal before you tonight, what I'll do, members, is first just give you a brief overview. I'll share my screen and show you the photo sims, and then we can get into as much of the detailed aspects of the project as you'd like. The project, which we call Westwood Union Station, is a proposal at 85 University Ave. And this is a project that we've been working on for several years. We first engaged with the town in late summer, early spring of 2022, and received a zoning determination request through the zoning enforcement officer, Mr. Doyle, that this particular parcel was not a part of the zoning overlay district in town and therefore necessitated a zone change. So we worked with Nora and Elijah and others in the planning office to proceed with that town meeting warrant that resulted in this parcel being added to the overlay district in the interest that we could locate wireless telecommunication solution on the roof of the current parking garage. Our proposal is to install one generator compound and one equipment compound, both located in the parking area of the site, as well as two ballast frames on the other end of the roof for this particular building for the equipment and wireless antennas that'll support our data usage. Before I walk you all through the photo simulations and at a very high level the plans, I want to just make a few other comments. The first is that the noise study demonstrates empirically that we are below MDEP and Westwood noise standards at quote all times and under all conditions expected based on the findings of the report. And I want to also address a comment that we received from the building commissioner and that I spoke to Elijah about earlier today, which is concerning the potential elimination of 2 parking spaces as a result of the placement of the cabinets for equipment and generator. I'll show you on the plans, but to be clear, those 2 cabinets are placed in existing locations that are already striped for no access and not parking. And the concern was whether the gates that would need to be opened for those particular spaces, for those particular cabinets, would necessitate the coning and eliminating of spaces. And we've submitted a memo and correspondence to the town that demonstrate that that is not going to be regularly the case. And we only expect very infrequent need to access those gates. There are alternative access points that don't necessitate eliminating parking spaces. And in the very infrequent occasions where those gates would need to be used, we would coordinate with the landlord directly to have that planned work timely done and the parking spaces coned off so that we can access it. So with that said, if I may, is it okay if I share my screen?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so I will do is start by sharing my screen here. I'll start with the photo simulations. You can see that this building here is the subject parcel at 85 University Ave. The site location is shown in green on this aerial map, and we have 3 photos that were taken, and you'll see the simulations superimposed in this presentation. You'll see the very minimal visual impact and the radio frequency friendly screening that we've put in to match the building, camouflage it consistent with the zoning requirements of the town. So this is the first vantage point. This is existing condition photo 1A, and this is the simulation showing the RF friendly screening for one of the ballast mounts on the rooftop. This is photo 2A, different vantage point, and you can see in this location here and very barely visible in this location here above the parapet, the visibility of the RF friendly screening surrounding the ballast mounts for the antennas. This is photo 3A and very minimal visual impact here. And that does it for the photo simulations. The zoning drawings, and again, I'm just the attorney, so if there's questions for the experts, we have them here who are available if there's any questions about RF, but in the interest of respecting the board's time, I want to just provide a high-level summary, and then at your discretion, we'll proceed as the board would like. These are our zoning drawings. As you can see from sheet Z1, we've got these 2 cabinets that I mentioned in the parking area. One that supports our generator, that was the nature of the noise study, and the other that supports other equipment. They're in spaces that are already, can't really see very well from this vantage point, but if you look closely, you can see that they're already lined off. It's designated for no parking. So the cabinets themselves will not be eliminating any parking spaces. The concern from town staff was whether or not these entrances right here and right here would eliminate parking spaces. And through our memo submitted to the town, and as I explained earlier, that would be extremely infrequent. And we've coordinated with the landlord, provided correspondence to the town that when that happens, we would coordinate with the landlord to make sure that those 2 spaces are coned off for us to be able to get access. The reason that we believe the access to be extremely infrequent is that there are 2 existing alternative ways to access you can see them shown right here and right here, to access the equipment cabinets and the generator cabinet, and that would be the normal route for access. So all of this is in top-down elevation view. You can see the cable runs coming right along here for our equipment, and then in this corner of the building, we've got our beta sector and our alpha sector, and these 2 ballast mounts for the antennas that you saw on the photo simulations. So with that, members of the board, we would entertain any questions, and if you'd like to hear from any of our consultants about any of the materials in your packet, we'd be happy to answer them. We're very excited to be before you today. As I indicated, this has been a long process for us, and we're very happy to be before you in the interest of deploying this technology to improve data and voice coverage for residents and businesses in town.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think I'll go to staff comments first. Elijah, if there's anything y'all wanted to share.
Yes. So in regards to the project, so there were some notes on the plan that if the board were to consider a approval of this, they would need to include some updates to their final plan, such as changing chain link fence that's indicated there. It would need to be a stockade fence. Additionally, ensuring that there's the sound attenuation needs associated with the equipment, and mostly things related to making sure that the conformance of the proposed equipment stays with the town's bylaws, rules, and regs. And so we do have conditions of approval if the board gets to that point. That includes that.
Thank you. And you answered my question with the Will there be conditions? Yes. So these are all things that could just be conditioned if the board decides to proceed.
Correct.
Thank you. Okay, any other staff comments before I open it up to board member comments? All right, thank you. Then I would happily entertain questions and comments from my colleagues. I'm not seeing any hands.
Oh, I will. I will.
Thank you, Maureen.
I just had two very simple questions for you. What is the time frame for this start to finish? Will that take for that to be done? And will it like be disruptive for a certain period of time?
Oscar, can you, we don't have our construction manager here, but Oscar, you might have better insight than I would into what the total construction timeline might be for a project like this.
Yeah, good evening. My name is Oscar Suarez with Dewberry Engineers. So Verizon has a priority on this site due to the fact that it's close to the train station. And basically they're looking to build this as soon as we get the approval. So time frame when it takes for construction, it varies by site. I would say it takes about 2 to 3 months. It could be sooner if they have a contractor that is ready to go and put more people into the project. So, but in average is about that.
When they start the work though, Oscar, how long will
Yeah,
it be?
once they start the work. Yes,
Right.
thank you.
Once they start their work is about 2 or 3 months.
Oh,
Yeah, it's relatively fast. Everything is moves fast with wireless, and they try to get things as fast as they can. Typically, more what it takes the longest the utility connections. But besides that, if they're in a hurry, they get it done right away.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I do see there's is Greg Richard with you folks?
He is, yes.
There's a question, am I able to get on the Zoom? Is he here?
I think he got bumped off accidentally.
I see. He's back
Yeah.
in the attendees if we wanted to promote him. Thank you. I see Tim. Yes.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Just two quick questions. It would be helpful for me to understand, just, is there a way to quantify or just not as least technical as possible, understand the broader benefits of the proposal? And I see modernizing and improving wireless coverage. Is there any, and apologies if I missed it in the package, but anything that can, quantify or explain the need or the overall, backstory behind this would just be helpful for me as a new board member.
Yes, certainly. Avelio should be able to speak to that from a radio frequency perspective. And if you'd like, I can share my screen with the
if you could share the
coverage maps.
The attachments in the report, we can talk through them and explain the benefits of the proposed sites.
Sure. Let me just grab the RF report.
While they're bringing that up, I just wanted to mention, Madam Chair. So, Tim, this area is actually, considered somewhat of a dead zone in terms of cell phone coverage, and they'll, speak more to that. But yeah, this is definitely a site that could, site area around University Station that could benefit from more wireless connectivity.
Yes, thank you. That's a great statement that you've made. So what I'd like to show you here is the design, the process we follow to properly design an addition to the wireless network. What we're seeing here on this particular slide is the existing coverage. And we're seeing this to neg 95. That's just a measurement of service. And Verizon considers anything stronger than neg 95 to be reliable. Anything weaker than neg 95, the more negative that number becomes, the less reliable the service is. This particular slide shows yellow and green. Green represents 700 megahertz. Yellow represents 2100 megahertz. Those are just two bands, two extremes. 700 megahertz is a lower frequency, travels further away. 2100 megahertz is a higher frequency, travels less. But the radios that we deploy for cellular coverage work in between those bands. So where you see yellow, there's green, by the way. This is an overlay. So we have yellow and green. We have 2100 overlaid over 700 megahertz. So you can see that the green covers a lot more area. Again, where you see yellow, there's green underneath. And this is what it looks like today. This is what coverage looks like today. Anybody within the green and the yellow has reliable service, has coverage. Now, this site we are proposing is serving two purposes. It enhances coverage. I'm going to show you that coming up, but it also serves as a capacity offload. Cellular networks, their demand changes as people move into the area, as traffic increases, there is more demand on the various cellular sites. So this site, the proposed site we're talking about, serves the purpose of making coverage better, but it also serves the purpose of taking capacity in, therefore allowing the nearby sites to work at less capacity. The services that the nearby or neighboring sites are providing today get offloaded to this new one site, allowing for better service, better throughput, better connectivity, more reliability. So if we could please go to the next slide. This particular slide is the same as you saw before, but now we're showing what it's like today and with the proposed site. We're showing coverage with the proposed site. So you can actually see how the yellow, there's a lot more yellow, particularly along the railroad tracks. You see that. You can actually see that, and again, where you have yellow, you have green. You have very reliable coverage. And this, we're showing this to neg 95 dBm. Again, a measurement of signal strength. Anything greater than that is considered reliable. Neg 85 is reliable. Neg 75 is reliable. So you can actually see the difference between this particular slide and the previous slide. Are you able to go back and forth? There you go. Perfect. Could you go forward again? There you go. So you can actually see the change in coverage. And these two slides that I'm showing you are known as a composite prediction. These slides are made with a prediction tool that calculates the path loss of the RF energy as a function of the terrain fluctuations, as a function of distance, as a function of clutter, trees, buildings, and things of that nature. Now, I have another, I mentioned earlier that not only is this a coverage site, you can actually see that the coverage increases, but this is also a capacity offloading site. And I'm going to show you that in the slides coming up. Could you move forward, please? All right. So now we're looking at the footprint of each individual sector. What I mean by a sector is the following. You can actually see the location of the sites today. Those are the little black wedges that you see there. Those are, we call them sectors. Typically, a site has 3 or 4 sectors. On average, it's 3 sectors. And they are aligned at different angles to provide coverage throughout and to work interactively with neighboring sites. So a user can be driving and hand over to the next site and not lose connectivity. So what you're seeing here is the footprint of individual sectors as it exists today. And I'd like to point out to you that take a look at Canton 5 on the eastern side on I-93. Canton side, that the red comes out of Canton 5. That is showing the huge footprint of Canton 5. Any user within the red area, as shown in this plot, is being served by Canton 5. That is a large area and is taking away resources from Canton 5 that could be better served by a site along I-93 or I-95. And that's where the proposed site is. We're proposing the site to be. So again, take a look at the red. Canton is an extremely large coverage area. So what I'd like to show you next is, if you could move forward, please. Now, with the proposed site, which is a two-sector site on the rooftop, okay, it's at about 57, 58 feet height, the antenna center line. That's the green. So now with the proposed site, you can see how the green, which is service provided by the proposed site, is taking traffic away, as it should, from Canton 5, allowing Canton 5 to provide better service to users outside the coverage area of the proposed site. The proposed site is going to work alongside the neighboring sites. So you're going to be able to hand over, but you're going to be able to offload users that are strained in terms of the service that they're receiving from Canton 5 now to the proposed site. And that's what we're showing here with the green coverage area.
Got it.
Could you, yes, any questions?
Thank you. Very helpful.
Thank you.
Yes,
It was good to see that again. Thank you very much.
you bet.
Elijah, yes.
Yeah, so I wanted to, stress to the board that, the proposal for this wireless, facility is not an issue as it relates to adding, service to the area. However, I did speak with the applicant about the parking spaces that are close to the equipment cabinets, and upon further review we did notice that and I had sent a summary to the board, but the fenced areas that the equipment site shows not only is within a hashed area that is pre-existing, but it goes all the way to the line of a parking space. And so I just wanted to be clear with the applicant that, even if the, proposal is as is, any cars turning into that spot, risk the chance of, hitting the fence or any of that stuff. And so we do believe that any approval of this would have to include those two direct parking spaces being hashed and added bollards. In addition, any sound attenuation plan would need to have, you would need to ensure that you're covering any sound that is created from those generators, basically making sure that anything that's added to that site is accounted for.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Fenton.
If I may, Madam Chair, just respond to that. Elijah, when you mentioned sound attenuation plan, I'm not sure what you mean, because we have a noise study that says that we meet all the standards and anticipate that would be at all times under all circumstances.
Yeah, so the sound attenuation plan would mean, making sure that within that fenced area there are panels that buffer the noise produced by the generators. You would need to show that you have the proper equipment to maintain that no additional noise is emits from those mechanical areas.
We do have our sound consultant, Doug, who's on the call. I would ask Doug if you could respond to that. I mean, I don't see why we would need sound reducing devices within the fence if we already comply based on the noise study. But Doug, could you speak to that?
Sure, Mr. Shadle. I'm sorry if I didn't pronounce that right. You're muted, so we can't hear you.
All right, that's my end.
If you could just introduce yourself, thank you.
Thank you very much. The Westwood Code includes some language that says that the project must include sound absorptive panels, I think is the term they used, to enclose any noise sources of significance. I believe that's what Elijah is talking about. Can you confirm that, Elijah?
You're muted, Elijah. Sorry. Still muted.
I'm still muted. All right. Yeah, so any sound that would be disruptive to the residential use of the site.
Exactly. And my analysis identified very early that the equipment that is typically put in an environment like this, in a site like this, produced significantly less noise than a normal generator. A normal generator is designed at about 70 decibels at 23 feet. This generator is incredibly quiet compared to that because it has sound panels built into the environmental enclosure. The sound panels that are typical for this kind of a site are put along the inside of the barrier, along the inside of the chain link fence or the wood fence or whatever it is required. By closing them into the generator enclosure itself, it dramatically reduces the sound from the entire unit. So the analysis indicated that with this lower noise generator, it's high capacity, but it's very low noise. It makes substantially less noise than the generator that I lug out into the driveway during storms. It's very quiet. My generator is very tiny compared to this, but this is a very quiet generator because it has the panels built into the enclosure. With that generator, no additional sound mitigation features are needed, and my sound report was intended to address the sound mitigation plan. The sound mitigation plan didn't even include a concrete wall between the generator and the nearest residences to the southwest. The only residences that have the potential to be affected by this, in addition to the sound numbers that I produced, it has an additional concrete wall that would further mitigate it. And so further mitigation is not only not needed, it would be kind of in the way. Consume extra space, which is another issue with this site.
Yes, so I just wanted to mention, to the applicant and the board that the sound attenuation or the sound studies that you were basing this off of. So for the university station, section, this application is bound by section 9.7, and so it does give full discretion to the board as to what level of a sound attenuation they require for this site. I just wanted to make that fully, transparent. And so if you are demonstrating that this does not, add more sound than it would, prior to having no equipment. The level of attenuation is kind of based on the need to make sure that it's quiet enough for the residents.
Elijah, kind of procedural question, given that we have a fair amount of discretion here, would it be within our purview to add a condition that says that if there are complaints or if it's determined after things are up and running that the built-in attenuation is not sufficient, that the applicant would be required to add what you were talking about, something inside the fencing, but not that's built in? Is that within our purview? And would that be something that you would, as staff expert, think would be an appropriate solution?
I think that Amanda's showing the bylaw here that shows that, for the wires facilities, that, it needs to be enclosed by sound attenuation panels sufficient to reduce the sound associated with the operation, and a level acceptable to the planning board. And, we do include, if the board were to approve this, there is a good amount of conditioning that shows they would be able to meet the needs of the board.
Okay, thank you. I see Phil's hand up.
Would we perhaps, if just to add that the applicant would be required to do an updated sound study, and if the sound study demonstrated a lack of compliance, then is required to do the installation, something to the effect of saying, demonstrate to us with an updated sound study that the complaint is not, not valid, or is not, subject to testing by the sound study, and then.
Yes. Sorry. Yes, Phil. So there is a condition that asks for testing to meet the sound needs.
That sounds good.
Thank you.
Phil, were you saying if there was a complaint, instead of then having to build something that might be in the way, they could do a sound study at that moment in time? And then if it's demonstrated that the study meets the requirements, then we can be assured that, we don't have to take action based on the complaint? That's what I thought you were saying.
I was saying that I want to see the language again, but I was thinking of some kind of trigger. A complaint could be one way, or it could even be initiated by the staff. I think it's just some trigger.
Yes. So to that question, yes, that is in the condition.
Thank you. Any other board member questions or comments? Mike.
Just a quick question. In terms of the placement of the equipment and the antennas, did you need to make any safety consideration in terms of, where certain units were, where people sleep and live, given it's a residential building? I'm just curious about whether if there was any type of standard you had to meet, et cetera, in that regard.
Well, certainly, there's quite a few standards, but are you referring to, we have a lot of safety standards to comply with. Are you referring to radio frequency emission standards, to structural integrity standards?
Radio frequency. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Avelio, could you speak to that? We are an FCC licensee and required at all times to comply with
yes.
radio.
Did we do an MPE study, Brett?
Let me take a look.
Okay.
I do not see one in the packet for this site. Doesn't mean it wasn't done, but I do not see it in the packet.
So whenever a site is deployed, an MPE study is done. MPE stands for maximum permissible exposure. And that study will actually quantify the exposure that is received by anybody as a function of distance from the site. And this is dictated by the federal government that has guidelines associated with what is good and what is bad. Typically, a cellular site like this on a rooftop, it meets I can tell you from experience that typically the exposure may be anywhere between 5, 10, 11%, just in general experience. 100%, beyond 100% is not allowed by the government, by the federal government. Below 100% it is. A site like this is going to be in 5, 6, 7%. Extremely low. Now, as far as, so that is general population exposure. There's also occupational exposure. When somebody goes to the roof to do work, they have to have an awareness of how close they can be to the antennas and for how long a time they can be to working nearby the antennas and be safe. And those are studies that are conducted, and I'm not sure if we've conducted that type of study for this particular site, but generally, yes, there is a way of quantifying the safety of the site. And for a site like this and people on the ground, it's quite safe. Now, working on the rooftop, you have to be more careful working nearby the antennas.
Is it fair to say, and I understand you're saying it's these projects in your experience that they're generally safe. If you were sleeping on the top floor, are you getting more exposure than if you're sleeping on the first floor?
But
yes, within the federal government's levels, is that
yes, it's a function of distance. And when we do an MPE study, you got to understand as well that if you're sleeping on the top floor and you have the tower above you, you have a lot of attenuation associated with the building structure itself. But notwithstanding that, the type of MPE study that I'm referring to takes into account the distance from the site at the base of the station. And these studies can actually be conducted as well as a function of vertical distance. But typically, like I said, these numbers are for the general public. These numbers are quite safe.
Yeah.
Being on the rooftop nearby the antenna, there's a different set of standards, and that's called occupational type of standards.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm sensitive to this issue, and I know we're being exposed by radio waves all day long in different ways. But I would ask if was the study required. Sounds like a study would probably be required here, but maybe it just wasn't linked to the packet. Does that sound right?
We would welcome a condition to the permit that we provide evidence of compliance with the mission standard, certainly.
In the beginning.
Yes, so I do have to let the board know. So I looked back at the application to make sure if that wasn't already included. It was not included in the application, and that is something that we do require prior to the board being able to make a decision. And so you would need to submit the MPE study, and this would have to be taken up at a later time.
So that's not something we can condition. We need to have that.
Yeah, we have to have that. I see that we have the RF report, but we do not have the MPE study.
I did look at the RF report. So with that being said, it sounds like we can't make a decision tonight, but it sounds like we could continue our deliberations and any discussions so that when we have them back, we can just discuss that report. Yes?
Perfect.
Okay. I do see Greg Richard has his.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, there is, I'm sorry, we do have the RF report. I'm sorry, we do have the EME report, and it's requiring no safety plan for the internal or external, which means it's below the permissible requirements. And we do have it. It's from the same package that we have here, and we can submit that for review. But it's already been prepared, and it's already determined that there's it's below the limits for both internal and external. So if it's over the limit, I can let the RF engineer talk a little bit more about it, but there's usually a letter that's required. And then on this report, there's no letter for internal or external. So we do have the report if that helps for, we can submit it to as soon as tomorrow or whenever you would need it.
Great, thank you. But Elijah, yes.
Would that work, Elijah?
Well, I mean, we'd have to take this up at the October 21st meeting. I just we can't make a decision without being able to review that.
Yep, procedurally, even if we saw the report right now, or tomorrow, it wouldn't help. We need to have time to review it and incorporate it into our process, if I'm understanding. Yeah. Thank
That's
you.
correct.
So we're going to October 21st, no matter what, it sounds like.
Yes.
Yeah, forgive my ignorance. I'm just, so the antennas aren't on the building yet, right? I'm just curious how the test is completed when the antennas aren't on the building and working. I understand you can't do both at the same time, but I'm just curious how do you test and make a report when the equipment isn't installed and running?
Avelio, could you speak to that?
Yes. So there's two ways of doing this, and both ways are exact. And there's no misunderstanding if one way or the other. To make a report without the antennas being in place, we do calculations, we do predictions. We know how much the RF decreases as a function of distance and as a function of the power that is being emitted. And in order to do that, we take into account the type of radios. And when I say a radio, that's what's sending out the RF energy into an antenna, and from the antenna it propagates into space. So we take all that into account. We take into account the characteristics of the radio. We take into account the characteristics of the antenna, and then we measure the decay of the signal as a function of distance, and we can calculate milliwatts per centimeter square. Typically, is the units that we use, power per unit area, to determine whether or not it meets the guidelines as defined by the federal government.
Yeah.
The other way to do it is to measure it. But typically, measuring or calculating, measuring after the fact, calculating before the fact, they both arrive at the same numbers.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And that gets back to my original question, which was just, is consideration being taken in the placement of those just to have the lowest? I get you meet a standard, that's great, but did you consider the placement just to lessen the exposure to those people who are going to be closest to the radio waves? And it sounds like you did, because you want to make sure you fall within this test. But that was my original comment, that I hope that placement is in the safest possible place for the residents who are closest to this. So thank you.
Thank you, Mike. All right, well, given that we are not going to be in a position to make a decision tonight, but I do think there is value if there's any other additional feedback or questions that board members have, so that we can kind of close the loop on as much as we can tonight to kind of hopefully expedite things at the next meeting. I think that would be appropriate. I do see Mr. Fenton's hand is up. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just on this emissions issue, we, obviously had submitted what we believed was a complete packet, and had received comments from the department, but didn't receive feedback about this item being missing. The prior applications that we've had before this board, the compliance that we've demonstrated from a radio frequency perspective has been after this permitting stage. It's been at the building department stage, and we've also, at great expense to the company, done analyses to demonstrate compliance with radio frequency emissions when sites are turned on. We're currently working on another site and demonstrating that right now for the town. So I guess we would just like further clarity on what it is specifically about this site that's generating the need for that second hearing, and why it can't be conditioned as a part of an approval this evening. And I would also remind the board that the health effects of wireless telecommunications are governed by federal law and the Telecommunications Act of 1996, which prohibits the board under federal statute from considering health effects when making a determination like this.
Understood. Yeah, thank you. We do have some newer board members who that is not something we're allowed to use as part of our decision-making process, but Elijah, if you can speak to the requirement, because I think that the requirement of having the report submitted is a little bit different than how we evaluate the health effects data. But if you could answer that question, that would be helpful.
Yes, so this was just included in the requirements for section 9.7, and given that the EME study needs to be included for any wireless communications, that is just something that we needed to include for this project.
So it sounds like it's a standard requirement.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Richard, I see your hand up. Was that from?
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, on the ZDs on sheet EME1 is it's called out in there as well. So it's after the C sections on the ZDs. I don't know if Mike or whoever would like to share their screen, but if you go to EME1, it's page 15 of 22 on the ZDs.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I do look forward to looking at the EME report when it's submitted as well. I mean, there's already been a policy decision that we want this. So I'm not trying to object on safety or any grounds, but I was just curious about how you guys place the antennas and take that into consideration, and just more from a curiosity perspective. So I appreciate your answers, and they were very helpful.
Excuse me. Thank you, Mike. Were there any other questions, comments, feedback from board members? Mr. Fenton, yes.
Can we also get a copy of the conditions that Mr. Romulus is referring to? We haven't received that and would like to review those before the next meeting if it's to be continued.
For sure.
The drafted conditions for what, if we were to issue the permit, is that what you're asking?
Correct.
Okay, yes. Thank you. Yeah, I didn't really have any comments or questions either. I appreciated the work you put into this. I know we've seen you before when we were talking about drafting the zoning article that actually allowed for this project, which I do think it's a big benefit. That area has needed better coverage for quite some time. And yeah, I appreciated the detail included in your application, so thank you. I didn't see any plantings, so I have no feedback on species. So that's all I had. If there were nothing else from board members and nothing else from staff, then I guess we would need a motion to continue.
Madam Chair, because this is a public meeting, we don't actually need to continue this. We can take
Oh,
it up
right.
at
Thank you.
at the next meeting.
Right. It's not a public hearing. Thank you. Okay, so is October 21st amenable to the applicant? Are you available that evening?
We'll make any day work.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right. Well, thank you all for coming and thank you for taking the time to talk through all of this with us, and we will see you next month.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You.
All right. Then our next agenda item is minutes. Review of draft meeting minutes from September 16th, 2025. Were all folks who were present at that meeting able to read them? And
Excuse me, yeah.
if anyone had any changes or edits, Tim, just for your information process wise, I will still ask you to vote, but you would abstain because you weren't a board member and at that meeting at the time. So,
Yeah, makes sense.
but I will still ask for your vote. We don't just skip you. So, thanks. All right. Were there any questions, comments, changes for the minutes for that date?
They look
No.
good for me.
Thank
All right. Excuse me.
Typical stellar work by our Jessica.
Agreed. I'm always very grateful to the thoroughness of the meeting minutes and
Exactly.
the record keeping. So thank you, Jess. All right, if there are no changes proposed, then I would entertain a motion.
I move that the planning board approve the minutes for the meeting of September 16, 2025 as presented. Come on, somebody's got to second it. What are we doing?
Was I
I have a
on?
No, but you started to cough, so I don't know that I can count that as a second, but I thank you. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll take roll call. Maureen?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
No,
You need to-
Tim. Tim, what the heck?
No, Tim.
Tim, you know you're
Yeah.
a newbie and you're already messed up on your vote.
Oh, I have to say abstain.
You have to
Yes,
say the
sorry,
word abstain.
Yes.
What the heck?
There we go.
Try say
Abstain.
abstain. Thank
There
you.
we go. Okay. Mike?
Aye.
Phil?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. That motion carries. All right, so our next agenda item is agency and committee updates. Updates from agency and committee representatives. Has anyone been to any outside meetings or boards that they're liaisons to that they would like to share? I thought I saw, oh, Phil, yes.
Well, I just wanted to say the design task force, since Sean has stepped down, I'll be chairing. We had, but that means I, who was the second planning board seat, we are looking for volunteers. I see Michael Didarian is smiling and is eagerly awaiting his opportunity to step into yet another role. Could I be interpreting that correctly, Mr. Didarian?
I was just smiling.
You just because you're a happy fellow at
Yes, and a happy-
9:40 at night.
Exactly.
I hear lots of volunteers.
Very briefly, Phil, what is the sort of commitment? What is the like what is the actual job entailing? Not that I'm interested in volunteering. I'm just curious.
Elijah, you got
Yeah.
my email. The 8th is going to kill me because I'm in the middle of a trial next week.
Oh, geez.
Oh, okay. All right.
I'm sorry about that, but even though it's at 7 o'clock at night, I'm going to be prepping for the next day.
Okay. So yeah, we've been trying to
Elijah, actually, can you hold off on postponing, because I'm going to find out tomorrow morning we may mediate the case, which would mean because we're trying to settle. The parties are far apart, but if we mediate, that completely frees up my whole weekend. I will let you know by hopefully noon or 1 tomorrow if I can do the 8th. If I am in trial, though, I go 12 to 14-hour days, and it's tough.
Okay.
But I will let you know. So just hold off for a little bit. I might be able to make the 8th work if we do agree to mediate.
Okay. All right. Cool. And for the time commitment, we are looking at monthly meetings for this. Looking at least a few in-person meetings at each kind of village around town, and then remote meetings in between. So it would be one meeting a month. Most of the board can meet on Wednesday evenings, and so that's looking at like the case there. And yeah, I would say at least a couple 1 to 2 hours a month in terms of commitment.
It's Brian Bear had to step down because he moved. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, that was unfortunate. I really like Brian. So do we put it out there for the public? But just he was an architect, and that would have brought a great. I was really actually looking forward to working with him because also a very nice guy. But that kind of perspective now is going to be missing from the group.
Yeah,
I'm open to thoughts or trying to get someone, or just am opening up the idea.
So, I mean, I think it would be best to add at least one person, planning board member or not, to make it, an odd number group. Right now, I think it's 6 members, so adding another person will make it 7. I don't think that I'm not sure. I can't be a fortune teller, but I don't think there's going to be, very, hard 50-50 split votes for this committee, but just in terms of good practice, I think an odd number would be best.
And Elijah, you had an intern that was working on this during the summer, is that right?
That's right, and he did present. He did make a presentation as well as provided some other documents that we can use.
Can
As
I
a
get copies of
springboard.
that just to, because I don't want to be flailing trying to get up to speed on this, and like I say, I got a busy schedule, and if we certainly, even if we can do it for the 8th, I would like to, because I have some ideas myself from some other work that I've been doing with my son on a comparable kind of project for Westwood. I mean Westboro. So I'm really eager to see some of this and actually kind of eager to dive into it a little bit.
Yeah, and Amanda and I were actually going to reach out to you to set up a time to
Great.
kind of
Okay, that'd be
discuss.
good. Yeah, maybe let's, when I touch base with you tomorrow, let's set up a time to have a full discussion.
So Elijah, would we need to seat someone prior to that kickoff meeting? Does that make sense? If we have a planning board member who's interested or anyone who's interested, does it make sense to really seat that person prior? Because they would need, I can't remember, we would have to vote to appoint that person, right?
Yeah, I'll have to give it a little more thought. I feel like as long as it's before, voting for like a final draft or something like that, I think. But obviously much earlier in the process would be better.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Jess, I saw you had your hand up. You were waiting very patiently.
I just wanted to let you know that Stephen Olenoff has a report.
Thank you. I did see that too.
I thought you probably did.
Thank you, though. Always good for a second pair of eyes. Were there any other agency or committee reports from the folks in this part of the Zoom before I ask us to invite Steve in?
Yeah, Ellen, I wanted to make a brief just comment and just float this, what I consider a creative idea out there. During our meeting last night, our joint meeting with the select board, there was a Pine Hill PTO meeting going on, and I was able to catch up with one of the members of the Pine Hill PTO today. And one of the issues that came up during the PTO meeting was the usage of the Deerfield School and the area surrounding that, that piece of land. And what I was told was the school committee member, I think her reply to the question was that, that the select board and the planning board would ultimately decide, what would happen to the school and the land and how it would be used. And so I don't know. I know our joint session last night, we all kind of commented on how, it was a little bit awkward and we were conducting, interviews and that, that can be a little awkward, but I kind of enjoyed, being on a meeting with the select board and kind of getting to debate and discuss certain things with them. And given that, whatever happens with the Deerfield School, it's likely that zoning changes might be required for that. I would just throw out the idea. I would love to have kind of another joint session with the select board to start to kind of brainstorm or kind of have a visioning session on what that could be. Because I think a lot of people in the town are interested, in potentially some type of town center or town green or, something that can be useful to the town and serve a bunch of different needs. And, given that the two boards are going to play a role in that, I think it would be great to start having discussions about just putting ideas on paper and starting to consider, what it could be together and like work together towards something.
Maybe a task force with the select board and planning board members. Something
Yeah.
that's put together.
Before I add my comment, I see Amanda has her hand up.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we're not misleading or, misinterpreting any information. So right now, the Deerfield is completely under the care, custody, and control of the public schools. The town has no say in that property right now while it's under their care, custody, and control. So there's no plans officially of, you know, what's going to happen with that property. It is completely in their control at this point in time.
Yeah, thank you. And I should add, like this, I was not at the meeting. I did not hear it firsthand. That's just what was reported to me, that, you know, one of the responses to the questions from the crowd was, you know, that ultimately the select board and the planning board would decide. And, you know, if there's zoning changes required, if, you know, you need to bring in, I mean, obviously the boards are going to be involved at some point if something happens to that. If something happens to that, like you said, it's under the school's jurisdiction right now. So, but
Well,
I thought I'd throw
think
that out there because you know, the May meeting is going to come up pretty quickly. You know, and if we do want to start to think about, if the town does want to start to think about doing something, it's, you know, we would start talking about it soon, you know.
Well, it could be even a task force with I think the assumption, which might not have been expressed, and I certainly wasn't at the meeting, would have been that the school committee would be giving up control, because that's kind of a precondition for the planning board and the select board to even get involved. So that was kind of like, even though it was unstated by Mike, that's what I was kind of considering, is once the school committee makes the determination it's no longer going to stay in the schools, what do we do with it? And that's kind of what I think we're at.
Yeah, that's my understanding as well, is when the school committee makes a determination whether or not it's still needed for educational purposes, that's when they would decide to turn it back over to the town with a capital T. And then the select board would have care, custody, and control. But it's interesting to hear that there's been a little bit of discussion about that. So I think it might be interesting and worthwhile to maybe try and connect with the school committee or the school department and just get a sense of where they're at. Because I like Mike's idea of trying to be a little more proactive, because as we know, zoning changes take a while. It may not be for this May, but if there's some movement happening, it might be helpful to know. And if there's no movement happening, that's helpful to know too. I wasn't at that meeting. It's interesting to hear that there was actually an answer given to that question, because I think that's the first time I've heard some sort of any kind of not speculation, but any kind of discussion around that at all. So that's interesting. And I appreciate that heads up. I don't, go to PTA meetings anymore. So
I think it would also be useful because if we're proactive, we might avoid some of the missteps that occurred with FS1. And if we take a proactive step, we could affect the process and kind of open it up, or do other things that might be avoiding missteps, and then have a buy-in from the community.
And this kind of circles back to Nora's earlier comments about the communication with the school department is far more solid now than it was in previous years. And I'm talking further back, like that relationship has really developed over the last several years. So hopefully maybe we can, get some insights if they have had any discussions that they're willing to share. It would probably be helpful for us to get some sense of what their thoughts are, not even plans, but if they have come up with any kind of a timeline.
Or yeah, a timeline would be helpful, just so we can think about it and talk
Exactly.
about it.
Excuse me. So thanks for that update. And again, thanks for reiterating, we are all very much aware that that property is still under the care, custody, and control of the school committee. And I understand there are still potential educational needs that would be served by that property. So it's just good to hear that there has been some discussion. So thank you. Any other updates from folks in our circle right here? Otherwise, I think we can bring in Steve.
Yeah, mine hasn't.
Did you have something, Maureen?
No, I just said mine hasn't met, so.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know my liaisonships have not been meeting either. All right, if we could bring in Steve Olenoff, I'd love to
Also,
hear.
Amanda, do we have a new date on housing? What's the new date on housing? I know that we were circling around a couple of dates while we're bringing in. I don't know if she heard me.
Looks like she might be having a technical
Yeah,
difficulty.
that's okay. Why don't we bring Steve in?
Yeah.
Sorry, the next housing partnership meeting is October 7th to finalize goals and strategies.
That's what I thought it was.
Few things going on October 7th. Isn't that the night of the FS1 visiting session too?
Yes.
Or the community forum, I should say. It's not a visioning session.
Right.
Or have we been able to promote Steve to panelist yet?
Just 1 second.
There we go. Welcome, Steve. Whenever you're ready, you can unmute. Oh, there we are. We get to see you too. Hi, Steve.
So first of all, I just want to welcome Tim. So for Tim mostly, I guess I am still associate member of the planning board, which means right now I just don't get to do much. But sometimes, a lot of times, I just say I'm just perfectly happy not having anything more to do. So tonight, I just wanted to get back to what was the Regional Transportation Advisory Council. And that was the public input to the MPO. And they decided, well, I was actually, for many years, I represented Westwood at the Regional Transportation Advisory Council. I was chair for 2 years and another 2 years. And at a certain point in time, they had a new rule that if you were on the MPO itself, you couldn't also be a voting member of the advisory council, which meant that well, what happened was I sort of represented a trick at that the subregion of the MAPC, and as a non-voting member. And so we had someone every year that would get appointed after that to be the representative from Westwood to take my place as a voting member. I don't know that anyone ever actually attended, which is what frequently happens on some of these things. And so I don't know how, and they knock you off after a certain amount of time if you don't show up. So I don't know whether that ever happened, but we continued every year to appoint someone to the Regional Transportation Advisory Council. So what happened was this past year, they completely revised the whole setup there, and they actually abolished the Regional Transportation Advisory Council and replaced it with what they're calling the Community Advisory Council. And they have all kinds of new members mostly from all kinds of community groups, citizen action committees and things like that. And so they only have one town representative, that's Natick, and one city representative, which is Chelsea. And so all of the other municipal, that's all just gone. And I asked, so how does the town communicate and get involved with the MPO? And it's mostly through the subregion, the subregional meetings, which our regional meeting is Trick, and Elijah is now representing the town at that. Of course, anyone is invited to come, and I would say, please come to a Trick meeting every now and then, and you get to find out what's going on in the region. More about the MPO and what's happening there. But that is the way for the 13 cities and towns in the Trick subregion to get their viewpoints into the MPO without going directly, which is to attend the Trick meetings. And at least twice a year, people from the MPO come out to those Trick meetings, and they want to know how those cities and towns in the subregion, what their desires are, what our priorities are. Every year I say our biggest priority in transportation for the MPO is the Canton interchange. That's been over 25 years. We've been trying to get that built. And so we keep pushing that. But I just wanted to let you know that that's it. It's though there will no longer be any representatives to the Regional Transportation Advisory Council because that's over with, and there's no way to be part of that new Community Advisory Council. And the way to really get involved in that is if you don't want to go directly to an MPO meeting or is to attend the trick meeting. And of course, you're always welcome. I am the representative to the MAPC, the Metropolitan Area Planning Council, which works very closely, especially on the transportation issues with the MPO. They're actually sort of part of it. There's a relationship, which I won't get into. And, come to the MAPC meetings. I'll make sure that everyone gets notices. Well, one's coming up the end of October. It's and it's in it's in Arlington, and it's let me it's Arlington, 9:30 a.m. On the October 29th, Wednesday, October 29th. So that's I invite everyone to attend. I will be there since I am the representative from Westwood. And that's about it. And I'm sorry I missed the part about the earlier part of the meeting where you talked about the path at the Pine Hill School. I hope you resolved it in a in some I hope the all issues is resolved.
It is. Thank you. I think we landed on probably the best possible resolution
Right.
given circumstances. So thank you. And thanks for the update. It was good to hear about the regional transportation. I didn't realize that was going away. Okay. And I do encourage people. I was the rep to Trick a couple years ago, and then I was the alternate, which was great because Sean was going to the meetings, and I love that Elijah's going now. And I was the alternate for MAPC one year, and it's definitely worthwhile, particularly for newer planning board members, to attend a couple of those meetings. You meet a lot of interesting people that do this kind of thing in other communities, and I learned a lot doing that. So I agree with Steve. If you have the time, it's worthwhile to go to a meeting or two.
Yeah, the representatives at Trick, it's varies over time. Other planning board members in other towns or the town planner in other towns. It's gotten to be lately more town planners from the other towns. But it's good to meet them and find out what's happening in other towns and how they're doing things. At Westwood Day, I met a town planner, a planning board member from Walpole, and he was very much interested in what we were doing here in Westwood. And as I've mentioned in the past, when we do things, a lot of times we look at how things were done in other towns along 128, like Lexington, Wayland, so forth. And I've heard from planning board members in our next town over that in Walpole, that they always look at what we're doing and try to copy us. So that's a good thing to hear. So he was very much interested in what we were doing.
Well, they say imitation is the most sincere form of flattery, so I'll take it. Thank you, Steve.
Okay.
Any other agency or committee reports? I don't think anybody else has gone to anything so far. All right, then our next agenda item is, if it loads, general miscellaneous updates and administrative items. Elijah, Amanda, yes.
So I just wanted to let you know that the lottery for 22 Everett Street just closed last Friday, and for the 24 affordable units, we had over 1,300 applicants.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Wow.
On the one hand, that makes me
Extraordinary.
happy that we had so many people interested. On the other hand, the fact that there's so much need is illuminating. So thank you for sharing that statistic.
That's incredible. I didn't realize it was that high. I knew it was ongoing.
And do you know, when will that move? When are they looking to actually get people into those units? Do we know?
Very soon, we're wrapping up some final inspections for the first building. Elijah's supposed to head out there, I think later this week, right?
Yes.
And then the state was a little slow on approving some stuff for the regulatory agreement, so we're finally in the clear with that one and just getting it signed. So a few administrative things, but they're looking probably the end of the month, the end of October.
That's great.
And when is
Thank you.
building
So-
two? When is building two going to start?
I think
They're
broke
gearing
ground.
up already, yeah.
Oh, they started breaking ground. I haven't been by there recently.
It's in the back. You can't really
Yeah,
see
no,
it
I know,
easily.
but I often go by there and try taking peeks as best as I can.
Yeah, he's moving on phase 2. So
Right.
and then there'll be more, a few more units. Yeah, I'm staggered by that figure of applicants.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm very glad that we're able to provide the 24 that we are able to provide. And I have to say, editorially, I'm particularly proud of that work to get those units available and some at a lower AMI. And that is work that I am proud of, and I thank my colleagues and staff that were involved in that work. Happy that we can help 24 entities, families, individuals, whatever. Okay. Anything else from on the administrative side? That's really great news. Any other updates, Elijah, Nora, Amanda? Okay. Well, with that, the
Motion.
last agenda item, well, no, I have to, our last agenda item that it's on the agenda, so I need to address it, is upcoming board meetings. We have a board meeting on October 21st, 2025, November 18th, 2025, and December 2nd, 2025. And I can't believe I'm saying the words December 2nd. But yes, that will take us through the end of the year. So I hope the public comes and attends some of those meetings. Now, that was our last agenda item. So if nobody has anything else, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. Nobody
Mike,
wants
you
to
gotta step
second
up a little
motion.
quicker, right?
I'm waiting for Tim to step up. I'm waiting for Tim to step up.
Alan, we have three. We
Second
have
time
two.
around,
One complete newbie and two semi newbies. If we had Kate here, it would have been split second. Seconds.
I know tonight's been nobody wants to second motions.
Nobody's seconding anything. It's like, what's going on, guys? Let's get going. Wrap it up.
So
all right, let's take a vote. Boom.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on adjournment?
The Red Sox won.
Yes.
Yay!
3-1. They
Nice.
kicked butt.
All right. Well, that's a good note. So there's no further discussion on adjournment. I'll take roll call. Maureen?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Phil?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. We are
Tim, you
adjourned.
got to step it up a little harder there. A little louder. Come on.